everyone! It's time for some Star Trek Club. I'm Captain Logan. There's Brandon Grimm, and it's Adam Meredith. And tonight, we're going to begin starting our countdown for our top 10 favorite Enterprise episodes. I don't think Brandon's got a list because Brandon hasn't seen enough Enterprise, but, you know, if you think of a couple things you want to mention, feel free.
There might be a couple in there.
Yeah. Honestly, I think what is more likely to happen is Brandon will go, like, I think you'll remember, like, a scene or two here and there, and then
I was thinking about that earlier.
It'll be like, no, that's actually an okay scene in an otherwise horrible episode. I think that's more likely to happen than anything.
You're absolutely right. I was actually thinking kind of that earlier today, like, what can I come up with?
We're not going to dog on Brandon for not having seen all of Enterprise like we did with Deep Space Nine.
No, but I mean,
that is not fair. Yeah,
my list is terrible too. I'm like,
yeah, because Adam was
thinking, I'm like, I don't really like this show that much.
Yeah, so you don't know it real well. You've not gone back to it a lot. So I'm going to be our resident Enterprise expert, I suppose. Not really. I mean, I don't know that show backwards and forwards or anything, but I've certainly seen every episode, and I didn't have too much of a problem making the list, although I was a little bit disappointed that more of the episodes on that list didn't scream, you know, excellence to me, but there's some fun stuff. We'll talk about it. We are going to split up 5 and 5. I had thought about going ahead and just knocking down 10, but Adam and I still might get to talking and take longer than we want to. So we will still split it to 5 and 5. Not seeing a lot of folks live yet, so hopefully some folks get here pretty soon, and we'll do a little bit of Santa Replicator here in just a minute. If we don't have a live audience that wants to play with us, we'll just let you guys play. That'll be fine. Thanks a lot for watching. If you're watching live right now, thanks for hanging out with us after the fact if you're doing that. I just got back from a trip like half an hour ago, so I'm trying to get like acclimated just being back at the house and stuff. I've been out at my wife's dad's place all weekend. Sarah's off the next couple weeks, so I'm going to be putting out some stuff this week on the channel, but next week I'm going to be more scarce, and so kind of vacation-y time for me, but still putting out some stuff. So anyway, that's what's going on with me right now. Adam, how are you doing, man?
Good. Pretty good.
Yeah?
Haven't been up to too much.
Just working a lot?
Yeah. That's basically it.
And what about you, Brandon?
What's
new, sir?
Surviving 90-degree plus heat, working at home, trying to get my AC installed again in the window. It's gonna
again, Brandon. I have a free air conditioner.
I have an air conditioner.
Free,
I have
Brandon.
one. I have one. It just hasn't gone in the window yet.
I would think that would be a priority.
It's coming to that. Yes.
Oh, okay.
I did start a garden, so that's cool.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and spin the wheel and find out what episode we're going to watch first this evening when we get
an Enterprise episode.
Yeah, we'll see if it is. We've got a couple Enterprise on the board, but considering the sheer number of episodes on the wheel right now, I'm not sure if that will happen. Also want to mention, as always, if you want to get an episode title on the wheel to be spun and watched at some point on the show, we're doing this completely at random, of course. You can put in a super chat for any dollar amount, and you don't have to just mention an episode. If there's something you want us to talk about related to Star Trek, you can also put that in your super chat as well. Feel free, and if nobody requests anything, Adam is putting Carpenter Street on the wheel. So please, somebody request something. Here we go. Let's find out what we are going to wind up watching tonight first on Star Trek Club. Here we go. Clickety, clickety, clickety. Looks like the Cloudminders.
That was my choice.
Yeah, you picked that way back at the beginning.
Why is that funny, Brandon?
Because I watched it 2 days ago.
Oh, that's right. Well, Brandon is going to be more prepared for this than I am.
Yeah.
Because
really?
I don't know that episode real well. And yeah, Brandon was like, I saw it on TV.
So I stopped to watch it.
And he was like, it was the
Minders episode.
The newer edition, the remastered, and I was like, that's all anybody shows, Brandon. Like, nobody shows the old shows anymore.
It looked really good.
It looks really good. They did a really good job on it.
But I remember when we watched that in club, and there's a line about a work of art, and everybody was like, "Oh, that's hilarious that Spock would say that." But now I understand why he said that, and yeah, makes more sense now.
I still don't know what you're talking about, so we'll have to watch it again. I've seen that episode maybe twice. Like, I don't know Cloudminders that well. So, yeah. Oh, you know what? I know why nobody's here. It's because I wrote Enterprise in the title. That's why. I know we have a couple of Enterprise fans in the audience, so we'll see if they pop in and
Enterprise fanatics
are both excited that we're doing Enterprise and will condemn us for all the mean things that we'll probably say about this show. I have a love-hate relationship with Enterprise, although I probably put the word hate first, because there's a lot of stuff in Enterprise that I really like, but overall, it's just not, this is not great, so yeah. Anyway, all right, well, it's time for a little bit of Standard Replicator. You guys, I am thinking of something that has to do with Star Trek. It's in my captainy little brain. We're going to start with Adam, and then we'll go to Brandon, and then audience, if you guys would like a turn, somebody just ask a relevant yes or no question based on the questions that you've heard already, and we will give you guys collectively a turn. Adam, why don't you begin, sir? All I'm going to give you is that it is related to Star Trek. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Is it from The Next Generation?
It is indeed from The Next Generation. Brandon?
Narrow that down quickly.
Specifically, you asked if it's from The Next Generation, so that means it starts there. I'm taking that to mean that it starts.
You're just making an assumption, Brandon. Ask the question.
Yeah.
Is it in any other series?
Does it appear before Next Generation?
We don't want to get off on a whole wild goose chase here.
It does not. We're gonna wait for the audience for a couple seconds, and in the meantime, Aurora wants to know if we're going to comment on what he calls the horrible Lower Decks animated series trailer. I had not planned on doing that because I didn't mention it to you guys. I don't know if you guys have seen the trailer.
I didn't get to watch the trailer yet.
I'm gonna talk about it tomorrow night on the Captain Logan show. I guess we have a Star Trek club, and we could have brought it up here, but I figured the Captain Logan show audience is gonna ask me about. Yeah, and the Captain Logan show audience tomorrow night's gonna ask about it, and I'm gonna have to talk about it twice if we do it here. So anyway, I'll be talking about it tomorrow. The only thing I'll say is it looks exactly like what I expected. And
it looks exactly like that picture. That poster.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think it's going to massively flop. I don't think anybody's going to watch that show, which I think is par for the course for CBS All Access, because, of course, they don't report their numbers, and they're trying to make everybody think that everybody's watching their shows, but they don't seem to be doing well, and it seems like they just continue, certain people working on those things are failing upwards right now, because they keep getting work, but nobody's actually watching their stuff. I will say that they, I'm going to talk about all this stuff tomorrow, but they were, of course, not happy with the like to dislike ratio and have already taken down comments on that video and likes to dislikes. So that's not altogether surprising. I also heard that when they unveiled some either footage or just screenshots or something at a panel at a I don't remember which convention, but at a convention last year, like nobody showed up to that panel. Like 5 people were in that room. Like nobody cares about this show, and that doesn't mean it'll be bad. And I hope that the trailer is not super indicative of what we're actually getting. But I mean, fool me twice at this point with CBS All Access, right? Like
I'll give them credit. It looked like they did an okay job with like the ship, like continuity and the interior continuity.
Yeah,
just everything else is terrible. But
I guess
that looked all right.
Yeah, but it's just Star Trek parody with Star Trek in the title, and it's lowbrow, and Lower Decks didn't mean lower humor.
It's like what I was scared the Orville was going to be, basically. You know?
And this show doesn't get made without the Orville, right?
Yeah.
Like, clearly they're just responding to that, and I don't mind the animation necessarily if, the show is kind of thoughtful. I don't even mind if it's, like, a little bit wacky. It just looks, like all the really obvious jokes.
So much yelling? Why is it yelling all the time? So much yelling.
Yeah.
Voice acting is so much.
But I will predict something. I guess we're talking about this now. Adam, I will predict something with Lower Decks. I think that show is going to be everything I was afraid it would be, and I'm not really going to like it, but I think it will be heads and shoulders above the other shows they've given us so far. That is my prediction. I think it will be better than those, just by virtue of being a comedy and not supposed to be taking itself seriously.
Right, too seriously, right.
It can't be pretentious if it's trying to be... I mean, I guess it kind of can be in a different way, but it can't be the brand of pretentious that we've gotten for... I'm starting on a real sour note here. For New Trek so far with the bad robot stuff, or the, Secret Hideout stuff.
Right.
what was I? I forget what I was saying. But anyway, if it's being Rick and Morty, like it's going to be a different kind of pretentious if it is pretentious at all. So
I mean, it doesn't even it's not even on the level. Rick and Morty gets on my nerves sometimes, but it's not even near that caliber. I would say it's more like a Family Guy kind of thing.
Well, so far, but we haven't actually seen the show. I mean, keep that in mind. There's only we've seen 2 minutes of it, and it is being made by one of the guys that used to work on that show. So
right.
Yeah, I don't know. Edward Bador is already throwing out, Super Chat, already throwing out some of his favorite Enterprise episodes. Edward, we'll get back to that when we actually do those. Let's get back to Standard Replicator now.
I'll just defer my top 10 list to him.
I'd like to defer the remainder of my time to my opponent. Thank you very much.
Take a break.
So... we know 2 things about the thing I'm thinking of right now. We know that it's in TNG, and we know that it doesn't appear before TNG.
Did Brandon actually ask that question?
I did.
Or did we just go off of what I told Brandon to ask?
I asked the question.
Page 14617. Page 14617 asks if it's alive. It is not alive, and we go back to Adam.
So you said it was not in any other show but TNG, correct?
No, it doesn't.
No, I said it's not in anything before it. Was the question he asked?
Before TNG. Oh. Well, is it in anything after TNG?
It is not.
Okay.
Oh. Is it in the TNG movies?
No. And now we. Wow. We could have narrowed that down quicker, I think. Yeah. But yeah. So now we'll wait for a second for the audience.
Series. That's all we had to ask.
And see if anybody else has a question in the audience. Busted Sim, what did you find? He just wrote "found it" in big letters. I don't know what he's talking about. Solar Dragon, is it in the first 2 seasons? No, it is not.
So it's not those uniforms with now collars.
No, that's not what it is. Oh, we got to really buckle down and focus here, Adam.
Okay. We said it's not alive.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is it a piece of technology?
Yes.
That was going to be my question.
Mr. Grimm.
Is it found on a starship?
It is found on a starship. I mean, that is a place where you see it. I'll say that. Busted Sim. I'm sorry. Busted Sim asked if it's a door. It's not a door. So I'm gonna do another one. Solar Dragon. Is it a weapon? It is not a weapon. Well, actually, I have to answer that question in the affirmative. Come to think of it, it is technically a weapon. Yes.
Ooh.
Yes, it is. In fact, which should hopefully get us there faster. Now that I'm thinking about it. Go ahead.
I'm disappointed. It's not a sequel. It's not going to be Picard's door instead of Archer's door.
A sequel to.
Let me think here. So
it's Harry Kim's door, okay?
It's a sequel after the fact.
Is it Federation in origin?
No.
No.
Do we first see it on the planet Risa?
We do not see it on Risa. Okay. No, sir.
Very specific question.
Edward Bador, what are we guessing about? Well, if I told you the answer to that, then we wouldn't have any reason to be guessing anymore. We have a thing. We know that it's not alive. We know that it's in TNG. We know it's not in any other place besides TNG. It is, I have to say, a weapon, and it is technology. Those are things we know about this thing.
And it is seen on the starship.
It's not Federation.
And it's not Federation in origin. Solar Dragon, is it that life form the Enterprise created? No, it's not alive, so it can't be a life form because it's not alive. Adam.
That's kind of how that works.
Is this thing Romulan in origin?
No.
No.
Is this thing Ferengi in origin?
No. Oh, how come going full screen switched you to a different monitor?
Really
what is happening with my machine lately? There we go. Okay. Solar Dragon, is it a weapon you can hold? You can hold it, yes.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay. Is it a unique, one-of-a-kind thing?
It is not. No.
Okay.
So it doesn't appear in that episode, I guess.
Brandon.
Is it Is it seen more than once?
No. It is not seen more than once. Mr. Roboto just says hi. Oh, hi, Mr. Roboto. TH1, is it Klingon in origin? Is not Klingon. What do you think, Adam?
Does it have to do with the Borg?
No.
No Borg.
Good question. Does main cast have any? Does main cast use it?
Yeah. Tom, is it powered? I mean, it must be. Yeah. I'm going to give you guys this one, too. Solar Dragon, is it the focus of the episode it's in? Yes!
See, okay.
Adam.
That's good.
Is this something that people wear?
Yeah.
I would guess. Is it the game from the game?
It is the game! That's what we were looking for. Well done, sir. That was quick. Did you get it from Solar Dragon's question? Did you get it from focus of the episode? Yes. I figured so. All right, cool. Well done. Good job, you guys. Working together. If I had not gone ahead and thrown out another audience question, we would have gone probably another 2 rounds. Okay, so now we're going to count down some of our favorite Enterprise episodes. A really mixed bag kind of show for me. And what's interesting about Enterprise, let me just say before we start, is that this is a show that because it gets canceled prematurely, to nobody's surprise, it is, but besides the fact that it had a Save the Show campaign, I don't think anybody was really actually surprised that it got canceled when it did, because it never fared super well. And I realized that ratings were not the only reason that show was axed, but yeah, I don't think people were real surprised by that.
Yeah, because like nothing else on the UPN network did well either.
Yeah, but that is a show where a lot of its best episodes are later. You notice that in a lot of our lists, besides, with the exception of DS9, very few of our favorite episodes wound up toward the end of shows with TNG and Voyager. You'd have like 1 or 2, right? But most of the best episodes tended to be like in the middle. And I don't think you'll see that with Enterprise. We'll see what Adam's list looks like, but mine is certainly more 3 and 4 heavy. I don't mind saying right away. It's a show that got better later, and if it found its footing, it was in 3 or 4, depending on who you talk to. Had that show lasted, I imagine a lot of its best episodes would have been in 5 or 6, like they, or in 5, like they tended to be with TNG and Voyager. And there were a lot of cool things that they wanted to do in the second season. The only connection that I can make to tonight's episode that we're going to start with, the Cloudminders, and this show, is that it was supposed to get a prequel to that episode in season 5, which I mentioned a couple weeks ago, I think. Yeah. Anyway, so let's go ahead and start counting them down. We're going to do Sarah's list as well. And I think Jason said he had a list too. I don't know if he said he sent it to me, but I don't know where he sent it. Jason, I don't know where you sent that, man. Send it to my Facebook. I can find it more readily that way. Okay, let's start with Adam. Adam, what is your number 10 favorite Enterprise out of 98 episodes? Go ahead.
I said Countdown, which was the penultimate episode of season 3.
Yes.
Which I enjoy. I just remember there being a lot of, that was where, you know, you had a lot of the Xindi Council and stuff in that episode. Was that the one also where the aquatic Xindi help?
Mm-hmm. Well, the aquatic Xindi actually take the Enterprise at the end of that back home, and then they go off, and then immediately we find out that we're in World War II. It's really funny. Right. Like they get sent back in time at the end of that episode immediately after the whale ship flies away.
Right. This Countdown, though, that's not the last. What did I do here? That's not the very last episode, is it?
Yeah, I think so.
It is?
I believe so.
Oh, I didn't mean to put that on there.
I was going to say, I thought maybe you picked that just because you like watching Archer run.
That's the Archer Run episode? I have to put the one before that.
So.
Let me double check this. No, 0 is. Wait a minute. See. 0 hours, the last episode.
Oh, is that what it is? And Countdown's what? Is that the second to last?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you put the episode where Hoshi gets tortured.
I think so.
Yeah. I think the one before it is actually a much better episode, but it's all in a sequence.
I have that on my list, too.
So you just went real seasonary heavy. This is the most apologetic I've ever seen Adam for anything. He's just like, look, I had to make 10, okay? I had
yeah, that was
10.
okay. Here, I'll just put it on there.
Adam, my number 10 is Broken Bow. It is the only series I can think of where the pilot is worth going on the top 10 list, which tells you a couple of things. First of all, for this show anyway, it has an okay pilot. But second of all, sadly, never gets real great in quality past its pilot, for the most part. And I say that it starts to kind of find its footing in 3 and 4, but it has something of a provocative pilot. And obviously, a lot of the things I hate about that show are just in premise. So all those things would be in that pilot. But there's a little more personality to some of the characters in that than I feel like they get through a lot of the first season, where they get a little bit wooden. I think that they have the same problem that people tended to complain a lot about Voyager's cast right at the beginning. They're all planks of wood. They're not interesting. Who wants to watch these people fly through space? And I think Enterprise had that problem a lot more than they did, with the exception of Phlox, who is what Neelix should have been, and is a lot of fun and really cool. And it was somehow not irritating and nauseating with his whole, constant optimism thing. But yeah, I like Klang. I think that Klingon's really funny. If you have to do a, make your prequel the time travel show, which is the most prequelitis kind of thing you can do, and immediately making it seem like a thing that is out of canon, like outside of the timeline, like paving over a timeline with its own thing, but then later on will turn out not to be that, even though that's all it possibly could be. This is all I know how to talk about when I talk about Enterprise. If you have to do all that, there's a nice enough mystery as to what exactly is going on. It's never going to culminate in anything, and I didn't trust Berman and Braga to make it interesting.
Because they don't plan, despite what he says.
I don't think they had a plan either. Yeah. And to be fair, you can do a thing like that. You could throw in something like Future Guy and be like, we're going to make this. We haven't decided exactly what it is yet. Maybe you have a few ideas about it. Like, you want to work towards something, certainly. Right. But, like, the idea of just throwing a thing like that in and going, this is really mysterious and will kind of make everybody scratch their heads and wonder what's happening, and then we'll just write character-driven fiction to eventually get to what exactly that is. That can work. Breaking Bad is the thing that I always bring up when I say that. We wrote ourselves into corners all the time with that show, and it never knew exactly where it was going, and it ends up being one very cohesive, novel on screen. No, you can do that, but these guys were burnt out after too many years making the same material.
Right.
And so it ends up being, more Voyager set in the past in exactly the same way that Voyager was more TNG set in a Lost in Space premise.
With more boring people.
With more boring people, yeah. So, anyway, but I liked its pilot okay. It has the same thing. I'll say this real quick, too. It has the same thing that Episode 1 does for me for Star Wars, where, the execution and the story is not great, but it's got a flavor all its own.
Right.
Aesthetically, tonally.
Right.
But it's funny that I put that on my list because like I said, most of what I don't like about that show starts with that episode because of the premise. We gotta make the Vulcans hate humans and that whole thing, and
jerks.
And I always thought that was kind of a misstep. But anyway, I could continue. Go ahead, Adam. What's your number 9?
My number 9 is the Andorian incident, which was the first episode with Shran.
Yeah, I almost put that
was
on here.
That was the Pajem episode, I believe. The first Pajem episode, where it turned out that was actually, he was right the whole time, and they were spying.
Yes, that's actually a really good episode, and its follow-up is quite good too.
Yeah, the Shadows of Pajem. Pretty good. Yeah.
That didn't make my list. Maybe it should have. But I already, we'll talk about this, I guess, next week, but I already put a Shran episode on here, so I didn't end up doing 2. Maybe I should have, though, because I have other things that are, kind of duplicated, because it's Enterprise. My number 9 is Regeneration, because a Borg episode for Enterprise should not work, and it's pretty decent, actually.
It's not terrible. I was really pissed.
It's not terrible. Number 9.
When I saw the trailer for it when it first aired, I was really angry. I was like, oh my god, they've completely lost their all ideas. The Borg, they're bringing them back after all the times on Voyager, but it actually turned out to not be that bad.
People are fighting with us in the comments about the whole Vulcans being jerks thing. That isn't a concept over execution issue for me. Like, Edward Bedore says the Vulcans were always kind of condescending, so naturally before the Federation they would be jerks. The problem is, it's not just the way they handle humans, it's the way the culture is handled, like, almost 100 years before we get to TOS. A lot of it was the, like, no melding thing, and, like, getting completely away from what Vulcan, culture was like, but then putting it all back together within a century was always kind of a big pill for me to swallow. And again, felt really prequely to me, where it was like, I don't even know why we're doing this except just manufacture drama.
A lot of the time.
Yeah, all the time. Exactly.
You wouldn't want to do that anyway, because Vulcans live long enough for them to have been like, a lot of the same Vulcans would still be around.
And
they would still be doing the same things 100 years later. They wouldn't have changed. Like, it takes generations to change. One generation's going to still act the same way 100 years later. Like, if they live that long.
Like, Edward, that's a really good point. I mean, Edward, you're right that the Vulcans always seemed in denial, and this is one of the things I like about that species, the kind of walking contradiction where they seem in denial about whether or not they're even capable of emotions. Also, Star Trek is sometimes confused about this, where we have, like, particular diseases that Vulcans can get because of their lack of emotions, and yet their lack of emotions are, like, mentally suppressed by each individual Vulcan. So I never really totally understood how it's also somehow a, like, genetic thing, but whatever. But they're they've always been in denial about that. So, like, I can see them like having maybe some issues here and there with humans, but the idea that they, like, completely hold us back like they do, I think just really throws the Vulcans under the bus too far. And they wouldn't have done that if it weren't for how kind of, like, for lack of a better way of putting it, like ultra extreme, in their beliefs, almost like an ultra right wing Vulcan society or something, right. For lack of a better way to put it, than they would be later. And, like, I don't know, maybe you could kind of come back from that. I just never bought it really. And neither did Manny Kodo, because when you get to season 4, he's got to make the whole thing a conspiracy done by one guy who took over the government. Right. And
they made Sobol not such a bad guy.
He just turns on a dime. He's suddenly a completely different character.
Like that.
And really likable all of a sudden, because that actor's great. I liked the way I liked getting to see him play that for a minute, but then he's a completely different character. But yeah, Mr. Roboto, do those diseases also affect Romulans? I'm gonna assume not. We never deal with that. We never have anything where Romulans have to go through anything like the disease that Sarek got, or anything like that, Bendai syndrome or anything. But I would assume not. But I don't even know if Romulans can meld. I'm going to assume not, because they wouldn't have, like, the mental control for that. But I would assume that they're still somewhat telepathic if they're an offshoot species. But I don't think we ever really deal with that at all.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's weird to me to think how are they really that they shouldn't be that biologically different if it's only been a few thousand years since the Romulans and the Vulcans separated.
They shouldn't. Yeah, but I like the idea that maybe they're not, but they just don't know what they're capable of. Because you would have to have a certain kind of mental control in order to do that. Like, the Romulans aren't meditating like Vulcans do. Like, they wouldn't be honing those abilities. Busted Sim says, I don't think they hold us back as necessarily how it was, just how the humans thought of them. They were prime directive-ing us. What do you think of that, Adam? Like,
I know, I think they were intentionally... But doesn't Sobol say, like, I didn't really want to do this, but we were doing, we were holding you back because of our dogma or whatever.
Yeah, I mean that. If that's not what it was at the beginning, that's certainly, as a fan, the interpretation that Manny Koto had when he wrote us out of it.
Right.
So he felt the same way a lot of the fandom did. So if you didn't buy that at the beginning, if at the beginning you were more in the Vulcans corner, most fans did not read it that way. Not saying you're wrong necessarily, but my interpretation was always they're intentionally turned into antagonists for the sake of having a hurdle to take us into space travel. I would have understood it a lot more if there was like a couple of like particular really bad situations that we got ourselves into where the Vulcans were like, well, we can't let the humans. But then on the other hand, I think part of the problem also was that they had a point, but they shouldn't have, because we were dumb enough not to think of the Prime Directive on our own. Like, the idea that we have to go out into space and screw up a lot before it even occurs to us to not interfere with people is kind of dumb. Because we'd already been out a little bit anyway, and we have rules in the books for how to deal with other human cultures already. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that the United States has the Prime Directive. Obviously, we don't. But there's already, in a lot of cultures, non-interference stuff. This is not a brand new idea. We weren't even smart enough to come up with Red Alert.
Right.
Before we sent the Enterprise out. So
that's funny though.
Everybody is made dumb
you were talking about
in this show to kind of.
We basically had to come up with all that stuff
drama
because of all of Archer's bad decisions over the 4 years.
Busted Sim says they didn't want to just give us all the tech. They had no idea what we'd do with it. What if we were just violent with that tech? Vulcans feared us repeating their mistakes. This isn't. Yeah, but they have a Prime Directive. This isn't just about whether or not they're going to give us their technology. I was never with Archer when he was like, the Vulcans don't, give us, all of their knowledge and stuff. That I get, but he
was acting like a pack lad.
They were intentionally trying to keep us from doing too much too quickly. To the point where they thought that we had to have a liaison from them on our ship.
Right.
Like they were micromanaging us completely.
Right. Exactly.
Which is a little bit different from just Prime Directive. There clearly was like a sense of control.
It felt like we had to have like some kind of be on a short leash basically.
And I don't know. It's just
babysat.
It just doesn't. It just never meshed with me with the rest of the canon up to that point, and it again felt real weird and retroactive. And again, I feel like I could have been made to buy it to some degree, but it just didn't seem real thoughtful to me. Like, First Contact, the idea seems to be we need the Vulcans before we can truly form Utopia. And then the Vulcans end up being the thing that makes it difficult for us to explore the universe and for Star Trek to really become Star Trek. I think that was a lot of my hang up with it. The idea that like it's the Vulcans that are keeping this universe from really becoming Star Trek.
Right.
That's weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
But maybe if we'd known it was a conspiracy from the beginning, then I would have felt a little bit better about it. Let's go through these episodes a little bit more lickety split. But I know we have some Enterprise fans in the audience that are just not with us on some of our complaints. What is so I said first. No, sorry. I said, where are we at? Regeneration for 9. Are we to your 8? Oh, and we haven't been throwing.
8.
Sorry, give me a second. We haven't been throwing Sarah's out either.
Sarah.
So Sarah put Hatchery at number 10 because Sarah's crazy and for some reason loves the Insectoid Zindi mommy episode.
No.
Where Archer becomes an Insectoid Zindi mommy.
No,
I don't know why, but she loves that.
Episode. I couldn't believe that episode.
And number 9, Proving Ground, which is a really good season 3 episode. I didn't include that in mine, but it's quite good.
Yeah.
And what is your 8, sir?
8 is actually the one that appears before Countdown, the Council, which was the one where Archer has to appeal to the Zindi Council to get them to say, like, you're being manipulated by these sphere builders, basically, and you're being used.
What's
And,
great about the council is all the world building that you've been kind of like really craving throughout that season. And I think that was a Kodo script. I can't remember, but it is just oozing with cool, culture and biology stuff. That's where we go to the ancient Xindi, mysterious sixth Xindi species, Avery.
Right.
We find out that they had a winged version. They had flying Xindi, and there's some nice intrigue. That's the episode where Dagger gets killed. It's, I think, the best episode of that season. I like the council.
It's interesting that they have the skeleton of the avian Xindi there, like, oh, look, we want to remember them always. It's also kind of creepy that we have a skeleton of one of them here, but kind of sweet in a way.
Busted Sim says, "Oh man, I got so mad at that episode because I agreed with Archer at first until it was shown as him being irrational. No, helping the insectoid young would be a good overture of peace. No, oh, you're just nuts from goo. Okay, mutiny away. Yeah, the problem, but I think the episode handles that okay. I mean, I see what you're saying, but because at first he's like, well, no, this is gonna maybe be a thing I can use for the sake of diplomacy, and then he just takes it too far and he starts putting the health of the insects above his crew, and of course that's when it's going way too far, and everybody starts going, okay, he's being mind controlled or some nonsense. I would like that episode more if they hadn't basically made that already like 4 times before.
Right. Did you show that episode to Jason? What did he think of that? Do you think it was crazy?
Oh, he just spent the whole time going, what the heck? Which is my favorite reaction from Jason in things. I gotta pull up Jason's list as well. My number 8 is also a Season 3 episode, Stratagem. Do you remember that one?
Which one is that?
That's the one with the elaborate ruse that Archer comes up with to make Degra think that it's like several years in the future and that the two of them are on a ship together, and he uses that to get a bunch of information about the weapon, and they kind of form a bond through that. I think that was great. I like it a lot. And the way that they like simulate space travel and stuff without a holodeck is really clever.
That's really interesting, yeah.
I like that one. A lot of my favorite episodes are just real off the beaten path stuff.
That's my problem. I forget about some of the good ones.
Yeah, well, and you don't speak episode title with this show as well as you do some of the others.
No.
And me neither, but I remembered that one.
Yeah.
Jason picked... Hold on. Jason picked Babel 1 for his number 10, which is the first part of the Anar 3-parter. And I'll tell you later, I've got one of those too, but not the first one. I think one of the later ones is better.
Yeah, I have one of them on my list too.
9, he picked Stormfront. Stormfront is unintelligible. And I'm really surprised he picked that, because he spent the whole time just looking at the screen going...
That's a Nazi one.
No idea what's going on. Oh, no! That is the Nazi one. I'm sorry, I was thinking the cliffhanger between 1 and 2. You're right, that is the Nazi one. That's Shockwave.
It sounds the same.
What the hell is happening in Shockwave?
Yeah.
You can't tell me. Don't pretend like you can tell me what's happening in that episode.
Stormfront is okay unless you realize it is a ripoff totally of the first episode of the... tried to reboot the original Battlestar Galactica TV show into Galactica 1980.
Is it really? I mean, I've heard of that show, but I didn't know what was done in it. They go back
in time to like Nazi Germany because the Baltar and the Cylons are helping the Nazis like make German rockets or something, I believe. Something like that.
My.
I've seen it since on the Sci-Fi Channel in the 90s, so I barely remember it. But
see, the problem with Stormfront for me is, I mean, when it was on, I guess I kind of enjoyed the novelty of that more, just because I was not expecting suddenly we're in the 40s. So that cliffhanger was really fun,
right?
And kind of oddly Twilight Zone was just like, what is happening right now? Like why are we suddenly here? And it kind of blew my mind, and I spent the summer guessing at what was happening, and then all the ideas I came up with were way more interesting than what they actually did.
But they never really explained who those weird looking guys were very well.
They were just
or why they were there.
Another faction of the temporal Cold War, and and at the end of the day, it's just a really easy, contrived way to end the temporal Cold War because Manny Koto doesn't want to deal with it. Yeah, Koto's problem was he wanted to give me the Star Trek prequel show that more of what I wanted and more of what a lot of longtime Star Trek fans would have wanted from that. He didn't like the time travel thing. He wanted to be clearly, actually a prequel in the same continuity. But the problem was in trying to write us out of some of that stuff, he was, as contrived, and sometimes the writing seemed as lazy as the Enterprise often did before that anyway. So, I think he's a good writer. I think he was a really good showrunner. But I think that he was in such a hurry to pave over some of that stuff that he didn't do it in clever enough and thoughtful enough ways. That was my only problem with Koto, was just like the way he wrote us out of Temporal Cold War was let's make the thing that makes the Temporal Cold War happen not happen, and then everyone remembers it anyway. Doesn't make any sense. You can't tell me that Year of Hell ends the same way if that's possible. I don't know what's going on. So yeah, he would do stuff like that. The Klingon forehead thing was kind of clever, but also really silly because it's like, okay,
just not, what's the point? Yeah,
we have a way to explain what Berman and Braga said in a TV guide when the show first aired was supposed to just be creative license. And then he goes, well, that's not right. They're not supposed to look like that. So, and it's true. You shouldn't just creative license that when on screen we've had people talk about it. I mean, that is kind of a problem.
Right.
Where DS9, there's that whole thing in Trials and Tribulations. Those are Klingons, but these are Klingons. How does that work, Worf? We don't talk about it with outsiders.
We don't talk about outsiders.
Yeah, and then Enterprise goes, whatever. We like the Klingons the way we have them. We have all this makeup and these outfits laying around anyway, so we don't want to have to make new things. And so, Manny Koto has to come in and, because he's, such a Star Trek purist, and try to fix that. And then it's like, okay, well, so now we have an explanation. And I like the augment thing. I think that's a really cool idea. That they lose their foreheads because of genetic engineering from the eugenics wars.
It's an interesting premise.
It connects to a three-parter that we did earlier in the season. And too many of the 2 and 3-parters in that season were just, and then this major important thing suddenly happens right after this other major important thing happens. And those were at least connected, and one had to happen so the other one could happen. So I appreciate that. But we have an explanation for how they disappear, but I don't know how all of them get them back. There's a token, throwaway line about reconstructive surgery that does not explain all of that. So anyway, that was a whole thing. Number 7?
Is that where we're at?
I think so. What is your number 7?
Did we do Sarah's number 8?
Did we? Sarah's number 8 was Harbinger.
Harbinger.
Yeah, Harbinger is the episode where Reed and Major Hayes get crazy and beat each other up in a hallway, and it's great. I love that episode so much. And that episode, and it's also the episode where we find the sphere builder for the first time. Yeah, it's great. And impressive that it's as watchable as it is with all of the stupid Reed to Paul relationship stuff that I don't like.
Right.
Yeah. Right. It's amazing that that's list-worthy, but despite all of that. Anyway, what is your next one, sir?
What was Jason's number 8?
My next one is
I think I already mentioned his.
I think Sarah
no, Jason also put Regeneration on his list.
Okay.
All right, got that. Jason also put Regeneration on his list.
Oh, yeah. Well, my number 7 is Proving Ground, which I think Sarah had on her list also, which was the episode where Shran comes to help Archer during the Xindi arc, basically.
I'm sorry, which one?
Proving Ground.
Proving Ground, yep. That was on Sarah's list, too.
Yes.
Sarah loves that episode because of Archerite.
Archerite, that's right. Yeah, I forgot.
Do you remember that? He's got kind of sort of a Corbomite bluff, and he goes, we're looking for he just looks over at Archer, something called Archerite. It's fantastic.
Yeah. It's just a good Shran episode. I like Shran.
Yeah, and it's got all the trappings of a good Shran episode, where he's got something kind of up his sleeve, but he really, so he, he's sort of like Q in that he's never there for the reasons that he says he is, but he actually also like Q really cares about the captain, but wants a real relationship with him instead of the sort of master pet thing that Q and Picard had.
Right.
That's where that analogy breaks down.
Right.
My number 7 is the Augments. I felt like I had to pick something out of that arc, but the first part is too boring, and the second part is too violent and depressing. So I went with the third part, and I like that ending okay, but that is... Auric Sung, played by Brent Spiner.
Right.
And I felt like I had to get one of those in there just because Spiner's performance in all 3 of those is so good.
I have one of those on my list too, I think.
Yeah, well, you probably put Cold Station 12 on then.
No, I actually put the Augments. Spoiler alert.
Oh, you also put the Augments. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sarah said In a Mirror Darkly for number 7. I wasn't sure if that would be on her list. And Jason also put Hatchery. What is with my family in that episode?
Hatchery.
Thought you raised him better than that.
I thought I did too. Yeah, I don't know what's going on now. Okay, let's get to number 6, and this will be the last thing we mentioned today, and then next week we'll do our top 5.
All right. I think this is a good episode. A while since I watched it.
I love finally getting to your blind spot. It's my favorite.
Twilight. That is the episode.
No, Twilight I like a lot.
Where
great.
Archer wakes up in the future and during the Xindi arc, and they lost.
Yeah.
Oh,
and it's really dark, and there's no humans left.
It is, and it's a stuff that never happened episode, and it's a reset button episode at the end.
Yeah,
Enterprise has more of those than anything does, but it's... a lot of people like E Squared. I think it's better than E Squared.
Yeah.
Which is not exactly the same kind of premise.
Is weird.
But yeah, it's very strange. But no, I like that episode, and I will go as far as... This is the reason that I like Twilight, and it's a runner-up for me. I didn't put it on my list, but... It is absolutely, hands down, Jolene Blaylock's best performance in that show.
Yeah, she's very good in that.
Because she's not a great actress. She tried her best. She's just not an actress. They hired a non-actress to be the Vulcan first officer in that show. I'm sorry, she's just not. And she tears it up as much as she ever does in that episode. She's really good.
Yeah, yeah.
I also thought she did okay as elderly person to Paul in E Squared.
Elderly.
I think she did okay. Yeah. I think she did okay with that. Yeah. My number.
Stand for elderly.
My number 6. Yes. My number 6 is also Harbinger. I had to put that on there because it's a lot of fun. I think it's one of the best episodes of that season.
Yeah.
So then we go over to Sarah's number 6, which was Shadows of Pajem, which we mentioned earlier. Okay. And Jason put In a Mirror Darkly for 6 on his. Now, keep in mind, Jason has not seen much of 1 and 2, so all of his episodes are going to be 3 and 4. Busted Sim had a few. He put all of his favorites too. Let me mention those real quick. 1 second. I gotta scroll all the way up here. Okay, Edward Bedore put Judgment for number 10. That's a runner-up for me. I like Judgment. That is the kind of like Star Trek 6 prequel, where Archer goes on trial and has to go to Repente, just like Kirk does in 6. It's like, if they're not going to kill you, all they can think to do is Repente. But it's pretty good. And we get to see the Sparky Gavel again, which is worth the whole experience.
Wasn't Hurlitzer was the Klingon in that episode, wasn't he?
Wasn't it Hertzler? I think so.
Hertzler, yeah.
Wait. Wait, was it? Now that you say that, I don't think it was. We'll have to look it up.
He was the guy that represented him, I think.
No, I don't think he was. Hertzler shows up in season 4, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't play 2 different Klingons. He's on...
I thought he did. He played the same Klingon. He showed up again.
I don't think that's true.
I'm
gonna look it up and make sure.
What
because I'm like positive you're wrong. It's Judgment.
And if there's a chance to peg Adam when he's wrong,
we got
you
to
take it.
Yeah, exactly, because he's not very much. But yeah, let me just pull this up real fast here.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, J.G. Hertzler.
Was it Hertzler?
Advocate
Okay,
Kolos.
I haven't seen that in forever. If that's the case, though, I don't think he possibly could have been playing the same Klingon that he's playing in that episode in 4. Because I think he's just on a ship yelling things in like one scene. And that guy wouldn't have been on a ship. That's the only reason I thought it couldn't have been Hertzler. But in my head, I also was picturing Hertzler. So
it's not the same guy, but he only appears in that one.
Well, maybe I'm wrong, and Hertzler's not even in that episode, but I'm pretty sure he is. Anyway, whatever. I also don't know Enterprise as well as I know other shows. Edward Bedore, $2 super chat. He mentioned Judgment. He mentioned Demons was his number 9. I don't right away remember which episode that is. What?
So you're talking about him in Borderland?
Yes.
He was just called Klingon Captain in that episode.
Yeah, he's just some random Klingon in that. And I didn't figure they would bring him in to play 2 random Klingons, neither of which were related in any way whatsoever to Martok, but apparently that's what they did. And 8 is Terra Prime, which is a decent episode.
I guess if you make a good Klingon, you make a good Klingon.
Terra Prime I considered putting on my list as well. That's part of the 2-parter right at the end, which should have been the end of that show. Demons, I don't right away remember. I'm looking that up. Hold on. Demons.
I actually did start watching this show when it first aired. I watched like the quarter of the first season as it aired, and then I was unable to continue watching, and I didn't have a way to get it.
Oh, that's also... okay, so that's the other part of that episode. That's what that is. And then we get to... We talked about those already. There's a couple super chats here, too, that I'll get to in a minute. He mentions Twilight as his 7 and Damage as his 6. I like Damage, too. I just had so much Season 3 on here, I didn't end up throwing that in there. Right. But I like the episode before it a little bit more, just that sets up Damage, because we finally get to see the globe drop after a firefight, which is really fun. And they do it in slow motion.
Did you have any of the Terra Prime arc on your list?
I didn't. Did you do that?
The problem... I did not. The thing that bothers me about the Terra Prime thing is I don't buy that they're supposed to be at least somewhat advanced, even if they're not to like 24th century levels yet as far as human society is go. Why do they still have people doing menial labor in a mine on the moon? Why don't they have like robots and stuff for that?
There was they had a difficult time extrapolating from now, but also making it continue to feel like Star Trek. I always say that. So It's like we have to be futuristic, but we're trying not to be too futuristic because we don't want to look more futuristic than 23rd and 24th century, even though in places we have to do that just to be able to not look like we're extrapolating from the 60s, even though I've always thought that you should just kind of stick within the world you're in and basically do that. I'm not saying the sets needed to be cardboard, but...
Right.
Lewis Cox, £5 super chat. I said many years ago that 26th century Star Trek, that a 26th century Star Trek show would have been good, but I don't know. I don't know why 26 specifically. I mean, there's a couple of episodes where where somebody shows up from that dimension, from that year or that century. But we'd never fleshed that out a lot. Like, if you did a 29th century Time Fleet show, it would just be a cartoon. But I don't know what exactly you do with 26th century, unless you're saying that just to jump even a lot farther ahead than we did from TOS when we went to TNG.
Time Fleet.
Time Fleet is silly. Yeah. So anyway, man, we're getting a lot of comments and questions and things here, and we're already at 8 o'clock, so we got to watch our first episode. I will try to answer a couple of these in between if we can. Let's go ahead and throw up our first episode for today. We are going to TOS. It's the Cloud Minders. And Brandon just saw this, and I'm sure you know this episode a lot better than I do, so I'm going to lean on my co-host a little bit tonight, because this is one of my TOS kind of cloudier episodes. I don't know this one real well.
Season 3 episode.
Yeah, and season 3 gets too much guff.
It's not that, it's not terrible.
Like, it clearly
and also
has...
they had a lot of problems.
And I just mean, Brandon, like, as a season, like, sure. I get that there was less money, and it was being run by a different showrunner. But the people working on it at the time that were unhappy with it, including Leonard Nimoy, would always complain that the problem with season 3 is that it was all like Freak of the Week. It was all like Monster of the Week in a way that Star Trek, had not been in the first few seasons. And if you go back and look at the percentage of the episodes that were that, it's not that many, really.
Yeah, there's not that many Monster of the Week. I don't know what they're talking about.
I've never understood that.
It's not complaint. Like Lost in Space. God.
No, I never understood that. And also, Leonard Nimoy talks about I Am Not Spock, which is a great book, by the way, and everybody should read it. But I never agreed with him with this. He always acted like this season was overall like far, far less sophisticated than the first two, and like some of its obviously goofiest material, not good enough, not befitting of the show, is in this season. But I don't think even the majority of them are that way.
No.
So I don't know. I think 3 overall is better than people give it credit for.
Yeah.
Because, yes, you have Spock's brain, you have And the Children Shall Lead, but there's other dumb episodes in the other seasons, too. Maybe not that.
Like the alternative factor.
Real quick, I like this comment from Busted Sim, talking about what I was mentioning earlier with Enterprise. Kodo wrote out continuity better than Discovery, which just said, don't talk about it. Well, yeah, I mean, that's true.
Yeah, Discovery literally pulled the thing from The Simpsons with Principal Skinner not being Principal Skinner, being an imposter.
That's
but
right.
Then we'll never talk about it ever again.
Yeah, the thing that broke Simpsons for a lot of people, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right, so the episode in question is Season 3, Episode 21 of TOS. It's The Cloudminders, and let's go ahead and get right into it. Here we go. Everybody, please press play right now. Bum, 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 bum.
Did anybody add anything to the wheel? I missed it if they did.
I'm not sure. I gotta go back and look at Super Chats and see if there's any I missed.
Uninhabitable.
I don't think so. But... Oh, hold on. Tom said Elementary Dear Data or Bride of Chaotica. You pick. I love Trek Club. Are you going to do worst list after best? We're going to do some other episodes in between, but we may do some worst lists down the road. Do you guys agree with me? I'm going to throw Elementary Dear Data instead of Bride of Chaotica on there, I think.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because that was on your top 10 for TNG.
Yeah.
So I think for that reason, if nothing else, we should go ahead and throw that on the wheel.
Sounds good.
It's weird to me that these people are supposed to be Federation citizens, yet they still have, like, such a rigid class structure on this planet. And it's like, I feel like a prerequisite of joining the Federation would be like, you would have to have a more egalitarian society on your own.
That's a good point.
And that when I watched this, I got the feeling that they acted as though they didn't know much about the people in the mines.
Yeah, but they're supposed to be Federation citizens,
right,
which is bizarre to me.
Yes, I am agreeing with that. But like, why wouldn't they know about the troglodytes? I can't remember what they're called. Exactly.
The troglodytes.
Well, the troglodytes are workers.
Yeah, it's something like that.
That looks good.
Yeah, that looks really great.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I saw that and I was like, dang.
So do they just have a, like, beam down platform? Is that just there for when people beam?
Yes.
And did they take it from the guy at the beginning of Mirror Mirror? Because he's got one too.
He's got one too.
Yeah, the Hulkins.
The Hulkins.
There it is. It's right
they
there.
talk about how
There's
all
mine,
forms of
it's
violence
just-
have been eliminated, yet it's just like the troglodytes that they are violent. It's not eliminated.
To you guys' point a minute ago, I'm totally with you, but they act like the Vulcans are really super mysterious, and they don't know very much about them, and that's a founding member
yeah,
species.
they've known them before any other alien.
Right.
Now, to be fair, TOS doesn't know that for sure, because First Contact, we don't know for sure is the Vulcans until First Contact.
Right, until First Contact.
But we know they're a founding species, and these guys have an ability I don't, which is to be able to look through 3D glasses.
Those look like the stuff that Khan was wearing in Wrath of Khan.
I thought the same thing the other day when I saw it. I was like, oh, they're on the planet.
Except theirs looks like it's made out of cardboard, and his looked like it might have been made of some sort of metal.
3D glass.
Space material.
Space material. Yeah, Edward, we mentioned that earlier, that Season 5 was going to do Stratos, and one of Kodo's biggest strengths was doing somewhat believable prequels to TOS episodes without feeling too retroactive. One of the best episodes of that show is Observer Effect, I think, which sets up the Organians and hilariously gives them the prime directive and then has us come in and make them decide to interfere in everything. And I love that. It's actually pretty great. But my point is, I wish the show had kept going so that he could have done more of those, because it would have been cool to see how he cleverly could have taken us to more of these places in TOS without feeling like he's paving over it or like it couldn't possibly have happened before. Somebody mentioned the Ferengi episode in first season Enterprise, which I think is pretty dreadful. And they would very often show us a species we weren't supposed to know yet, and then go, well, we just won't name them. Or we'll say, you're not supposed to fly into this area of space.
Right. They do that with the Romulans, I think, don't they, when they first encounter them?
Yeah. These guys are also wearing something akin to the suit Khan was wearing, too, in...
yes.
In his episode,
They're
in
like
Space
pirates.
Seed. They do.
Typical kind of rocky, craggy planet they beamed down
That guy
to.
just flew at him. Uh-oh. She lost her glasses.
Gotta get that timpani in the soundtrack.
Mr. Roboto, if you sent a super chat, I don't see it in either place where I can look at super chats. It's not in here. So sorry about that. I mean, feel free to just send a normal comment and I will read it.
Oh, it's troglodytes, not trogdites.
Oh,
yes,
well,
the troglodytes.
regardless, I'm still calling them troglodytes because it's hilarious.
I mean, of course, I think that's what they were going for. You know, an inferior species, at least.
This guy was... I've seen him... This actor was in the original
every
Outer
Shakespeare
Limits.
play ever. Oh, I'm sorry, what?
He was in the original Outer Limits in a really good episode called Obit. And then he was also on Babylon 5. For any of you Babylon 5 fans out there, he plays the Justin guy that Sheridan encounters on Zahadum, the sellout human.
Oh.
In season, at the end of season 3.
Wow.
Before he jumps into the hole.
That's crazy. I can't believe that's who that is.
Yeah.
Edward, don't you just hate it when your mask falls off in the middle of a fight? Yeah, that's the worst.
I wonder if that was intentional. Look, they look like they're wearing an outfit from Futurama. They look like they're wearing Zach Brannigan's outfit with no pants.
So you can tell we're in season 3 because we're just using whatever was lying around. We had like $9.50 per episode for this season, so we're on like the same planet we've been on 1,000 times. And I realized that we're always redressing a soundstage planet, but when we had more money, we could make them look more exotic and look different from each other.
And even they would give it like an atmospheric effect sometimes.
Still lying on the ground, and nobody bothers to pick them up. They just stay there.
Yeah. So I did do the atmospheric effect there, it looks like, with some clouds.
And what I was going to say is real quick though, when we go into the cave, it just looks like the Horta cave again.
It does. It does. They did a good job with the Stratos interiors, I think, though, in this episode.
That's where they spent their
for
budget
what the money they had.
You can see all $9.50.
Now they obviously ran out of costume money for this episode. It looks like.
Yes.
They had no swatches of fabric left, apparently.
They just used trash bags.
They just used trash bags. Almost as bad as the Jiffy Pop bags the lady wore in Gamesters of Triskelion.
So he just introduced his daughter as a work of art. She herself is a work of art.
Well, it's TOS.
Yes, but then so later on, Spock's she says, "I've never met a Vulcan before," and he goes, "Nor I a work of art."
Yep.
And that's what Elle, in the previous incarnation of the club, she hadn't heard the first part where he introduces her as a work of art, so it sounded like Spock was using some sort of a metaphor in a way that Spock wouldn't normally use.
Right.
Honestly, I couldn't even tell that was messed up until he pointed it out.
Right? Just looked like part of it.
That thing there.
It looks like it goes there.
It's the same color.
But no, you're right, Brandon. That's a great line, and it only works if he's just repeating something that somebody else said.
Right.
Yeah, Busted Sim, it's eerie how similar the histories of TOS and 60s Batman are.
Yes.
They both start and end at the same time, and they both run out of, public interest around the same time. Although, I think, Star Trek kept more of its audience than 60s Batman did. I think that was just a shtick that got old for people. But both season 3s are a lot cheaper and don't have as many good episodes. But at least TOS doesn't straight up change formats. 3 got weird for 60s Batman because they quit doing very many two-parters.
Did 60s Batman have a big syndication following like TOS did?
No, the height of its popularity was absolutely when it was on. There were, when it was on TV Land and stuff later, yeah, obviously it got like a new generation of viewers, but it wasn't like a show that people just missed and then suddenly it was huge later like Star Trek was.
Right.
Star Trek was at its most viewed in the 70s.
Exactly.
And 60s Batman was a phenomenon. Star Trek is a well enough watched show for a sci-fi thing in its first season, and probably its second too. And then 3, it just gets killed because of the time it gets put on.
The time slot change.
And allegedly, Harlan Ellison almost single-handedly got its 3rd season to even happen. But with that whole thing is really interesting. But with 60s Batman, it was huge. Like, everybody watched that show.
Right.
And everybody wanted to be on that show in a way that
I never
didn't
heard
have
the
that with Star
Harlan
Trek.
Ellison story about season 3.
I'll loan you a book where he talks about it.
Huh.
People in the comments are trying to decide if her outfit is sexy or trashy.
So I wanted to ask you about
It really, I think it goes on to the trashy side compared to some of the other stuff that William Tice came up with during the show.
There's some super revealing stuff in TOS that I would still describe as classy.
I don't mind
this
outfit,
one is not one of those things.
Yeah,
I don't mind this outfit, but how do you think this would have been received when it aired originally? Like an outfit that revealing.
I don't think people would have. I don't know. I don't know if they would have said anything.
It was just impressive that at that point they were able to get away with it, and the censors didn't block much of that.
Do anything. Right, because they wouldn't let. That's true, because they didn't let Barbara Eden show her belly button on I Dream of Jeannie,
which was right around the same time. Right?
That looks a lot better than it did in the original.
Mm-hmm.
The original looked like they airbrushed a figure onto a little photo.
Yeah,
of
I was
Earth.
surprised they did anything new to that in the remaster.
Yeah.
I Dream of Jeannie was, well, I mean, it starts before this, but is it still on when the show starts, or does it?
I don't know. I think it may have been. Yeah, it was definitely on when the show was on, because they didn't really go to color till the mid '60s, and I Dream of Jeannie was only in black and white its first season, I believe.
But yeah, Brandon, that would have been risque for some people, certainly. But I think it was probably a selling point. It's probably why a lot of men watched this show.
Sure. This also aired at a later time slot at night, probably, than, especially this season, was on at like 9 Central.
Yeah, but it was 7 before that, was it not? 7, 8?
I think so.
Slot?
It was whatever the slot for Laugh-In was, but that's who they switched out Trek in this season with.
Really quickly, did they do this superimposition in the original? Or is this just
Yes.
the remastered? Did
Yes,
so
it's
they
in the
it looked
original.
like they're using the remastered Stratos.
They did use the
for that.
remaster for one shot, so that somehow they were able to do that.
That's
I
really
don't
cool.
know.
I wonder how they managed to undo and then redo that.
Yeah, the remasters try to be as faithful to what the show looked like originally as possible, so they would not have
Yeah.
taken license like that, Brandon, and just suddenly done a bunch of intercutting like that.
Sure, and that makes sense, but that led me to the fact that how did they use the new remastered Stratos in that shot? It's really cool.
This thing reminds me of a Mystery Science Theater 3000 joke. She nailed her cat's cradle to the wall.
but yeah, Brandon. But the other thing to keep in mind is that they're never inconsistent in the remasters with stuff like that. So if they couldn't have made it work in that shot, they wouldn't have
done it.
remastered Stratos.
Sure.
At all. You
Makes
wouldn't have
sense.
seen it in one shot looking different from the rest of it. They just wouldn't have done that, I don't think.
That's really cool. So he's talking about his super sensitive hearing right now, but he doesn't mention the woman who almost walked through the other door, which I would think would catch his attention.
I'm sure what people would say is he's distracted by her, but I'm
Certainly.
with you. So
Her
Spock
eyeshot
has...
is insane.
Yeah, I know. It's really distracting, and I have a hard time paying attention to scenes that she's in because it looks like a child colored her like a coloring book.
It
Oh, I love
looks
the
like
I love her
she's in an
makeup.
80s music video
Yes.
for a new wave band.
But what I was going to say is Spock has a surprising amount of love interests in TOS.
He does. And they gave Dr. McCoy a couple.
Yeah.
He got some too, surprisingly.
The M113
And a-
salt creature.
Yep.
Look, she looks like she's gonna cut a cake. Serving, it's like
Yeah.
a serving knife.
We'll see
It's an
Kirk.
interesting melee knife.
We'll see Kirk is cellular peptide cake with mint frosting.
Oh,
You sleep
Faked her
lightly,
out.
Captain.
Were you really gonna cut me with a wooden knife that you got at a Renaissance festival?
yeah. Her
Yeah,
her
that's a
makeup
good-
is
that's a good
crazy
line.
too.
Just don't touch her face, or you're gonna be cleaning that off for like 5 minutes, Greg.
She was that's the woman from the planet earlier, from down on the surface.
People in the comments are talking about how Kirk and Spock both seem to be about to get some in this episode. I say Spock has a surprising amount of love interest. I think that's, of course, for... it seems surprising when you just think about, who Spock is and the fact that he, hides his emotions and stuff.
Right.
But it's done, of course, for a couple of reasons. It's interesting to put him in situations where he's tempted to break out of his emotional control and to, show how human he actually really is.
Right.
And how much he, deep down longs to be able to do something about those emotions, to act on
Right.
them. But secondly, and probably more importantly, Spock was the breakout character in the show and far more popular than anybody else in the show, much to Shatner's
Right.
chagrin. And he was especially beloved by the female audience. And
Yes,
the ladies in the audience are putting themselves in the shoes of characters like her right now. And
Yeah.
that's why so many episodes did this kind of thing.
Yes.
So I think... so like a lot of female viewers at the time probably would have put this high in their favorite episodes and probably would have put This Side of Paradise in their favorite
I
episodes.
think one of the best Spock love interest episodes is the one All Our Yesterdays, where he goes when they on the planet with all the portals to the different time periods on the
Yes.
planet, and he goes
Yeah, I
back
forgot about
to
that.
the prehistoric times of that planet, and he has to leave that woman behind at the end. It's almost his Edith Keeler moment, I guess.
Yes, and I've heard other people say that. That is another episode that I don't know very well, that I've only seen a couple times. Brandon says, not Brandon, sorry.
It's like the penultimate episode of the show.
I do say.
Busted Sim, well, maybe Spock didn't hear that woman walking by Brandon because he had his head in the clouds.
Oh.
Yeah, good one.
So, another thing that just happened here, I want to ask your opinion. Does it make sense? Spock enters the room and he goes, "Am I interrupting, Captain?" But he entered the room because Kirk called out to him. So, like...
Did you want me to come right now or like 5 minutes from now?
Yeah, and they were in the room like next door. Like, he should have heard the melee combat.
With the wooden knife that she got at a Renfest.
Right. That he acts like is really sharp when he's holding it. Like
the melee combat. He's in a bed fighting a chick with a wooden sword.
That'd be kind of a fun prop to have, though, for your Star Trek area.
It would, absolutely.
It wouldn't. Oh.
Oh. Pain growing more intolerable all the time.
Sounds like my
jokes. I'm gonna put that on the board.
What?
Dagger of the Mind.
See, they're completely thrown off guard by the fact that there's a subclass. Why don't they know more?
Yeah.
Okay. Nah, I'm totally with you there.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have been allowed a mission to the Federation with this kind of society.
Right, and then there's this whole thing where, like, these people might have somewhat a point because of the caves they make them go in, have some gas that make these people stupid or something like that, which is weird.
Another thing about this episode later, it's revealed that...
But they're also causing it, you know.
Not even the Federation knows that this stuff emits gas in large enough quantities. You'd think that if they're using this for medicinal purposes and things like to save plants and stuff, they'd know everything about it.
Yeah.
And it's clearly not a secret. They're clearly not hiding it because they seem almost surprised that Kirk and Spock don't know about it.
Right.
Or that they don't also function that way. It's like, this is just how things are done.
Yeah.
This is the agony booth.
And as an enlightened society, they should know other cultures don't operate that way.
Yeah, they clearly aren't enlightened.
Agony booth.
And usually, they've changed this effect a little bit.
All forms of violence, yet they're torturing.
Look at that. That looks like one of those things from Spencer Gifts. It's like the plasma.
Oh, yeah.
If we had a dime for every time we said that.
You know what? Every time we do say that, we should go out and buy one from one of those things and decorate.
Yeah, but the problem is, it's always stuff from Spencer Gifts from like 1996. Like, they don't have them now. But not at Spencer, though.
They still have Spencer Gifts?
Yeah. But they don't have as much lighting stuff as they used to.
Man, every time I go to the mall, I have to go to Spencer's, which admittedly has been 4 months, but since I went to the mall.
So, how different would this episode have had to be if we simply made this a planet that we ran into because we heard they had something we needed and maybe we could trade for it?
That makes more sense.
As opposed to they're in the Federation. I don't know why Stratos needs to even be that close to the rest of the Federation. Why can't it just be another planet we found out there somewhere?
So they make a point, I think it's earlier in the episode, they make a big point out
especially because it's called Stratos, so then you have almost like a double entendre thing, where like it's in the stratosphere, but also it's a planet that's out there, and then their ways are kind of out there, right? Like there's a thing you can do with that thematically.
The planet is actually called Ardana. In the city of Stratos.
The city of Stratos, right.
They make a big point.
I know, but you can still do a thematic thing with that name. Is all I'm saying. Sorry, go ahead.
They make a big point about the fact that there's a question all of a sudden on whether they're going to receive the shipment, and Kirk says something to the effect of, "Well, you need to abide by your terms of being in the Federation. Like, we help you, you help us."
Yeah. Busted Sim says, but Archer was supposed to be the one who met these people, so of course he didn't follow protocol when it came to them. Yeah, that's fair. That's hilarious. You're right. And a retroactive Enterprise episode could have made this whole thing make way more sense.
He'd yell at them
that
more
they're
than Kirk
in the Federation at all.
Sure.
That might have been why Kodo wanted to do that, because maybe he had the same problem that you guys have, where it's like, how are these guys in the Federation? But there is one nice thing about there being in the Federation. We don't have to deal with Prime Directive at all.
Right.
If they're in the Federation, now Kirk actually has a leg to stand on when he says, you people are a backward society. You're not supposed to be acting this way per the protocol living under our roof, right?
Kirk kidnaps the leader of the society at the end of the episode.
No, that's within his rights. He can do that.
But I'm just like, it's very bold, and dealing with the Prime Directive at that point, you've got way more issues at that point.
Yes, exactly. But there are episodes where he does things going almost that far, and it's never a Federation planet when he blows up the computer that runs the society. Sorry, what were you saying?
Right, because those planets wouldn't be in the Federation.
Oh, it's because this is a stagnant society. So I'm just going to destroy their fake god here so they can evolve.
Edward says, you see, Cap, Enterprise making the humans incompetent did work. Yeah, for this one plot point. If that episode had gotten made and it didn't.
I like the look of this planet, by the way, the remastered.
The remaster, yeah. They did a good job matching it.
Although it does not look like a Class N planet to me. That planet does not look like people could live on it. I guess that's the idea, though, right? That they have to be in the clouds or in the... Yeah. So I guess that makes sense. Sure. I'm catching up.
What is that thing?
But I would wonder about the air.
Yeah.
That's a sample of the Xenite, I think.
Oh, yeah. He hasn't been in this episode very much.
I also always kind of wondered if they were looking at Cloud City, or if they were looking at Stratos at all when they did Cloud City and Empire. Not saying that other like science fiction things and novels and things didn't have cities in the clouds, but it wouldn't be the only thing in Star Wars that was borrowed from Star Trek or inspired by Star Trek.
Yeah, that's a Xenite sample.
I think that was mostly taken from like Dune, honestly.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah, how do they not know this? Like...
Yeah, they use it for something, but apparently they didn't realize.
They use it anywhere there's plant infections.
Yeah, there's some weird exposition issues in this episode.
Vanna White.
Don.
That's what I thought the other day when I saw it. I was like, oh.
Oh, Edward, I agree. If you have to compare this to Star Wars, that does, the Cloud City thing better. But this does okay with $9.50.
Are you still taking points for people who?
Yeah, it does.
No, because I did it first. It's fine. I know that a lot more people watch this channel that care about Star Wars than Star Trek, so I have to be diplomatic and allow it to come up now.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know if George Lucas was inspired by this when he came up with that. But I've always wondered about that.
Has that screen always been there?
Yeah, they've had that monitor, but I don't know if it's right behind the transporter operator always. But they had a screen in there before, yeah. They're
taking it in and out, right? Because we see that wall a lot. And I'm pretty sure it doesn't usually have a screen on it.
I think it's over closer to the door a lot of the time.
But I think they put it there just so they could have the transporter in the background because it looks cool.
Yeah.
I'm also not totally sure why they're having this conversation in the transporter room.
Right.
Like, you'd think they'd be in a meeting room or something, and then they would just go to the transporter room?
Him. They're going to beam him up.
Oh, okay.
I think this is when this happens.
Brandon, do you agree with Kirk's decision to kidnap this guy?
It's an interesting way about it. Kirk, I think, becomes a little bit unhinged, if you will, without having been exposed to the Xenite.
Yeah.
And then he gets exposed to the Xenite and he becomes way more unhinged.
Why do you think he's being... Because I just haven't seen this in a long time. Why do you think that he's being as sanctimonious as he's being?
So that's a good question, and I wondered that myself when I watched this the other day, and I'm not
Because they probably don't
sure.
get into... Look, they're a member of the Federation. They're not supposed to be acting like this. Like,
and Kirk's not usually so gallant towards, like, members
now,
of the Federation,
I've always
right?
got the impression that individual Federation members have, like, sovereign control over local affairs, but I'm pretty sure they still have to abide by certain
But
rules
not like
in order
caste
to remain
systems.
in good standing, you know?
You could see this being a thing that they get away with doing later because they're not being checked in on, but this is clearly a thing they've been doing since well before they would have joined the Federation.
Right, exactly. Right. I think it amounts to Kirk. Kirk sees some pretty aliens and he wants to help them. No, it's not that simple, but I think he ultimately was right to kidnap him, but he really didn't know exactly what would happen to the guy if he did, put him in that environment.
Rockman says that a lot of these kinds of visuals are inspired by people like Mobius. I think that's true. I didn't think of that. Busta Sim, the transporter sometimes has monitors, sometimes synthesizers. Seems to be modular, but always whatever is going on is to be relevant will be there. Yes, exactly. Edward says, "Gotta cherish Stargate
filters, Brandon. They look like a fish tank filter."
Yeah, there's a great line. There's actually a great line at the end of this episode that would be very, very well at place in our current situation in today's society. I'll just say that much. I don't want to.
I mean, it's Star Trek.
Yes, but it's still specifically now.
Edward says, "Gotta share a Stargate and Babylon 5 before a new iteration rips those fandoms apart." I think we're safe. I don't think those are popular enough that we're going to get big remakes soon.
That show's forgotten by people younger than...
And also, there's no way, if he could help it, JMS would allow that to happen while he was still alive unless he was involved in it. Right. And I don't think he would want to see that rebooted. Could be wrong, but I wouldn't think so.
Right. It's not even streaming right now.
So he gives her his word, and then she is about to ask for his word, or she's about to ask him to take her word, but he's already been burned by her once. I don't think Kirk would have gone with her word again.
Yeah, he didn't trust her.
Vanna.
And this doesn't seem
I'd like a vowel.
and here I made that joke. And it doesn't seem like it's one of those situations where he's just blinded by her beauty or something.
Right. Because she doesn't, while she is gorgeous and done up, she doesn't fit the typical beauty you see in Star Trek either. I don't feel like.
I think she looks like a normal Star Trek female.
Yeah, I'm not with you there, Brandon, but Kirk doesn't seem enamored with her like he is a lot of... It just seems like he's got other things on his mind. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do they even have a makeout sequence or anything?
No.
Does that ever happen, or is this completely
No, it was
platonic?
just the tussle in the bed.
Yeah, besides that, which obviously has some inherent sexual tension. It doesn't seem like she's actually supposed to even broach love interest.
Right.
Especially because you don't usually get two of them in a Star Trek episode, right?
So I like
Spock's got his.
The bars that keep her in.
Yeah, they've used that thing before.
Uh-huh.
Those bars. Oh.
Nice aim, Kirk. I'm always impressed when people can fire weapons that don't have beams that come out of them, but they hit the person they're supposed to.
Right. Yeah. It's like a weird stun effect. Sometimes,
She just tells them that they need a transport card to be able to do what they are about to do, but he could just as easily have himself... He got beamed in there. Right. Just beam him down.
Did you see how those bars didn't even connect in the middle? It looks like you could just walk up to them and do this, and then walk through them.
Yeah, you could just push them apart.
So,
pretty easily.
I also want to know...
But maybe they have, some kind of zap on them or something when you touch it.
See, I wondered that, too. I wondered if they were electrified.
Is there a reason that they have to beam the Administrator to the Enterprise before they beam him to the mines? Could they not just beam him from Cloud City? Because Scotty was like, he looked awful mad to be beamed onto the Enterprise before he gets beamed down to the mine.
I don't know if they have the ability to do that.
See, I'd never known.
I mean, that it's not the same thing as sight to sight, but I don't know if you can do that.
Right.
I think in TOS, they at least had the sense that you had to beam onto a pad before you could beam somewhere else.
They say that sight to sight transport's really hard in TOS for some reason.
All right. That makes sense.
Is that technically still sight? I guess it is sight to sight. I always think of sight to sight just on a ship, but yeah, I guess it is. Adam, he looks like he's breathing that.
Why did Why did they put it over his head like that?
Well, that's how those masks. It's futuristic mask, but it's off kilter, so because it just hooks over his head. There's a clip. It's basically a clip over the skull. See?
Yeah, it's bizarre.
It is bizarre. Even in modern standards by today, you wouldn't do that.
What I was gonna say is, it looks like the color dust from the '60s Batman movie.
Huh. These guys could be like the miners out of an old western, honestly. That looks cool. I dig that.
Truck lights.
And see, it's TOS, so we have to keep showing the exact same shot when we're looking at the topography, and they make it like slightly different so that it doesn't look like exactly identical, but they also know that in TOS it was always the same shot, so they're trying to get around that a little bit, but not be too different.
Is that another thing it has in common with 60s Batman? Reusing stock shots a lot?
Yes. But not entire stock sequences.
That's just,
coming down the bat poles,
coming out of the Batcave,
and coming out of the Batcave. That in that way, it has more in common with Power Rangers than Star Trek.
So I don't remember where it is in this episode, and it may have already happened. But McCoy has a word that he really botches. That's a really simple word that everybody said multiple times through the episode. Thought that was funny the other day.
Anka. Or Anka.
The mask can make you a real boy.
Do you think that outfit she's wearing was her prison uniform?
Yeah, probably so. Looks like it.
That's the third outfit she's worn in this. It must be.
Floured her.
And the second time he's wrestled with this lady.
A tussle in the sand, a tussle in the sheets.
Yeah,
I think if you were going to kick up sand at her, it would get in her eyes and she'd be like, "Oh, my eyes!"
So
but you didn't do that.
That might be a prison uniform because of what it's got a thing. It's got.
We did this in Devil in the Dark too.
Whatever their language is.
There's your whole thing, Jay, about why do they need phaser rifles? They just
if a phaser can do that, I don't know what the point is of a rifle.
So that's a lot of dust on that sound stage. I would not have wanted to breathe that in.
I don't remember which.
It just depends on how much you're being paid.
Where No Man Has Gone before, Shatner talks about that there was a wasp nest up in the sound stage.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And they all came out at once while they were trying to film a scene. It was bad.
I do love the lighting down here a lot.
Yeah, it looks really good.
I would have maybe done the kind of purple color on both sides, but it looks really cool. Look, I got that idea from TOS and I incorporated it in my bunker.
I feel like TOS doesn't have as many Dutch angles though as 60s Batman.
Well, no, because it's,
Nobody does that.
It's not well, but also this isn't a satire of film serials and stuff.
Yeah.
You can tell that she's already. It seems like she's already starting to suffer the effects, but I can't tell if it's on purpose or just her acting got a little hammier. As per usual, Scotty gets the gist, if not the eloquence of the statement.
This may be a horrible thing to say, but Doohan, for whatever reason, in this episode, is looking a little older to me than he was.
They all look a little bit older. But it's like it's very near the end.
It's like they aged quite a bit in just a couple of years.
A couple of years. I think Shatner might. I don't know when he started wearing hair pieces and stuff, but his hair slightly has changed over time too. I feel like a little bit.
He definitely has a belly that can be seen a fair bit in this episode.
Well, and Shatner was never buff. Like, he clearly lifted,
He was
but he didn't do a lot of
for
cardio.
what he considered buff in the '60s,
Okay, that's fair.
but not like now.
He's definitely started to fill out at this point.
Chris Hemsworth or whatever.
But yeah, like, I feel like I can already start to see, like, movie Scotty in his face a little bit. And when you go back to the first season, it's like, how's that the same guy?
Mm-hmm.
Brandon, if you could have one, like, piece of the TOS bridge in your house, what would it be?
I'd probably have one of those computer control stations, at least. I mean...
The thing that the thing that Spock puts his face in.
Well, I was gonna say, would it be the viewer
right
thing,
now,
Adam?
the
for
viewer
you,
thing is interesting.
would you?
I don't know.
Or would it be the earpiece thing?
The earpiece thing's pretty cool.
I once Cap knows this, but I don't know if you know this, Adam. I once envisioned whatever it was Spock is seeing in there, and I did a little comic for Star Trek Club where it was like emails and stuff. It was just a computer monitor of emails.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
On the Star Trek Captain's Chair CD-ROM from the '90s, you can look inside that scope.
Yeah. You know what? I might have the helm control. That's what I'd put.
I want that console that has the swirling vortex for no reason. The color rainbow vortex thing that spins around.
Thing that was just looks like something that somebody would use to hypnotize somebody.
Yep.
That thing's cool.
I mean,
yeah,
and
it looks
everybody's
very
pretty
hypnotic.
much got view screens these days.
See, he used all the fabric for her cape. That's what happened.
Oh.
Ran out. Overestimated.
Now we gotta beam him
to the ship. And he doesn't look too happy.
So by high advisor, you just mean up in the clouds, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been smoking the reefer.
Oh.
And then when he goes down to the surface, he's the low advisor.
Well, has he been smoking the Xenite? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, and he's also the high advisor.
Is that why you? That's what I was getting at. He's the high advisor because he's had a little Xenite. Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, then the troglodytes are the high troglodytes.
Maybe put the gun down.
Shatner has this wonderful ability.
Shatner's unhinged now because he's been exposed to the Xenite.
Oh, see, I was gonna say when he does this kind of scene, he's really good at looking sarcastic and paranoid simultaneously, which I would not think is possible, but he nails it. Look at that! Oh, look at the thing he does with his hand. That's pretty good.
See the edginess in Kirk.
I might soon need to be called the high advisor myself.
What's interesting is that Vanna is the first one to notice that it's actually taking effect.
Vanna.
But the High Advisor says, I've been here an hour and there's no effect. And he's like, you've got no effect. But he should see that Kirk's becoming unhinged based on his diplomatic meeting with him in the beginning. But he is agitated.
You bet I'm agitated! We watched that last week. Do you remember when Riker was in play and he thought he was going crazy and he was like, you bet I'm agitated!
Glimmer of independent thought.
That would be the frame of Cloudminders.
The frame of Cloud Mind.
Frame of Cloud Mind.
Yeah.
Oh, forget what I said about the purple earlier. I didn't realize that each part of this cave was lit up differently in different colors.
I don't know what the light.
Which is very TOS.
Maybe
yeah, what
it's
is
like they're different kinds of rocks, or
yeah, it's like what is causing that except mood lighting?
Also, it makes
that would have hurt if it connected.
Pistol whip him.
Even if they are considered lower forms, it makes no sense that these enlightened people can't provide them the help they need in the mines. Like, send them some equipment. Don't make them dig with their hands. They dig through rock with their hands.
Yeah, and again, it'd be different if they weren't actually that enlightened and we were writing this episode differently, where this is just a planet we
and
came
they're members of the Federation.
But yeah, we keep going to that
stuff.
point, but clearly they are supposed to be enlightened.
So Jay, the cake cutters are called Morte, apparently.
Wow. Oh, they have a name.
Yeah, the Morte.
Well, that's cool.
This guy.
No, I like that there's a lore behind
what
this.
He's doing. Yeah.
You know what they remind me of? They remind me of the ice cutters in Enterprise.
What is that thing in the background?
Yeah.
I don't think it's supposed to be there.
I don't know. Did you notice when he went up against the wall that he like moved part of the rocks with his back?
That's not the same actor. Look at that. Oh,
no, it's not. We have this problem a lot with TOS.
Always.
Quit showing his face.
Yeah.
Even the back of him, you can tell it's not the same guy.
I love how she's the one that grabs the communicator and asks them to get out of there.
This is Vanna White. I'm missing letters.
So they go ahead and
wait. They sped up that footage. Did you see that? When he was when he was moving his hands across the controls. Why did they speed up the footage? Why did they do that?
Answer me this.
They're running out of time. They have to fill 45 minutes. Apparently,
they are fighting. They are locked in combat.
Yeah, in Mortal Kombat.
They couldn't just beam the High Advisor out of there because they were inseparably close. Does that mean that she would have been caught in the beam as well? Is that what that means, or just that they would have been entangled
your
in
phone?
the beam? Yes.
Something is buzzing.
It's not my phone.
The Xenite gas.
That's weird. I don't know what that was.
Uh-oh.
Get him. Oh, right. That would knock a person out.
Chop.
That's his karate chop.
Does his action figure come with karate chop action?
Yes. Kirk has the ability to knock people out by virtue of being the star of the show.
Can we try
that?
No,
the best one is when he just does... When he, like, grabs his fist and goes...
So that was a little delayed, I guess. Here, try again. Here, try again. Try again. Try again. Ow. That actually connected. I don't like filters or coffee.
I like the word protector much better. It's basically the same thing he said to Scotty.
It's also kind of dramatic.
He's like, it's technically not an exact quote, but it gets the point across.
Yeah, you do look like a pirate. But yeah, the other thing is they have to be more enlightened because of the whole cloud metaphor, right? Like, they're higher beings. They're up in the clouds.
Yeah.
And I like the idea that they see themselves that way, but obviously because of the way they treat this lower class, they're more barbaric than they want to let on that they are. But they still have to have, like, better technology and be more, intellectual.
Right.
Or that whole thing doesn't work.
That's all they needed? 4 cans?
It seems like this problem was solved somewhat easily.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I love that line. Of course, Spock sees beauty in knowledge. That's wonderful.
You might want to wear something different.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
You're gonna get messed up.
Although it's also difficult to breathe.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, I was going to say it's a desert. In fact, Vulcans should take their cues from these people and build a city in the clouds, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
The Federation Bureau of Industrialization.
Weird, that's a bureau?
Uh-huh.
But yeah, the difference, I guess, is that the Vulcans have evolved to breathe that air easily. Well, that is true. He is guilty of abduction. Spoken like a man that's never said that word before.
Condescending shoulder rub.
She went to HR shortly thereafter. Stratos HR.
Okay, so it was completely platonic until we remembered that this is Kirk we're talking about, and then in his head, it is not. I do enjoy, though, Kirk having this relationship with this lady that is not sexual in nature at all. Right. Ooh, that staircase is cool. Can I have that in my house?
Yeah, so that marvelous stuff has been all over.
5 cans.
It was 5. Look, there are 4 cans!
They got 5 cans of dirt.
Look, I believe you'll find that there are 5.
That's going to save a whole planet.
It's weird how many different contexts I found to be able to make that joke. Where there are 4 of something or there are 5 of something, and someone claims that there's a different number of them. Wow, that's a cool shot.
That appears to be another beaming platform because they came in and out from the city that way several times. But he's able to beam right into her holding pen, too.
The holding pen.
Holding pen.
The jail cell. Fred Freeberger.
Yeah, so Fred Freeberger was the showrunner during 3. When Roddenberry, if memory serves, the idea was that he was not happy with the new time slot and the other restrictions that they were putting on him, and he threw his hands up in the air and he said screw it, and he was basically not involved that season. It was a
bluff. He tried to call NBC and say, I'm going to not be as involved in this if
and then they drummed him out.
You don't give us our old time slot back, and they're like, we don't care.
Yeah, that's not. If that's true, that's not how I read it.
That's what I.
Interesting. Yeah, I read he was just frustrated.
Gene Kuhn left after this season too.
I knew that.
After season 2.
But yes, everyone left after this season.
Yeah.
Well, so that was the Cloudminders. Fun looking at that again. I just don't know this episode very well. I'm going to have to spend more time with this one. So we're going to come back in just a few minutes. We're going to take a break. But before we do that, let's spin the wheel one more time. And we're pushing 9 o'clock here, so we'll try not to be too long getting into the next episode. Usually we try to do... So we have to spend. We're gonna do it. We have to spin the TAS wheel, which I just put together just for such an occasion. No, I didn't. Anyway,
that would be kind of funny. Actually, we're running so long, we have to do it.
What I was gonna say is usually we do a little bit of discussion in between episodes. We're gonna forego that tonight and just go right into the next one. So let's go ahead and spin the wheel and see what our second episode is.
Do it.
There are some 2-parters.
Better not be Code of Honor.
If it is a 2-parter, we will watch the first part this week, the next part in 2 weeks. We're actually going to skip next week. We won't be here on next Monday. If it is, the only thing we won't do if it spins is Star Trek Beyond, because we won't have time for that. So here we go. Let's see what we got. Looks like Minefield, which is nice because we are doing Enterprise countdown for this week and next time. So it's nice we're actually going to get to watch an Enterprise episode while we're doing an Enterprise show. And Minefield was in my runners-up. I actually like this episode quite a bit. So a decent Season 2 Enterprise episode. So find that on your Netflix or your DVDs, whatever you have. And it is in Season 2, and I think it's toward the beginning to middle of Season 2. Toward the beginning? I think so. I think it's pretty early, where they go into the Romulan minefield. So we will be back in just a few minutes. Let's say like 4 minutes, guys. 4 minutes.
There are 4 minutes.
I believe you'll find that there are 4, because I said 4 minutes. Okay, we'll be right back, everybody. And I hope you're having a good time. And as I always like to say, if anybody comes in wondering where we are in the comments, please let them know, and that we'll be back, and that we're watching Minefield from Enterprise.
It is the 3rd episode of season 2.
I was going to say 3 or 4. Yeah. And then I second guessed myself. I was like, is it toward the middle? No, I think it's at the beginning. And then I was like 3 or 4. Yeah.
And as I always like to say, make that graphic.
That graphic.
For the 5 minutes.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet. I keep forgetting about it. All right. We will all be right back in just a few minutes. All right. Bye, folks. Oh, Brandon, you apparently were like part of the way in when we were talking over there.
Yeah.
So somebody was like, "Oh, it's a sneak preview of Brandon." Well, folks, we just gotta wait for Mr. Adam to come back.
Do they have a Majel Barrett like voice emulator where you could input? Like that'd be hilarious, right? You type in text and it says the text.
Yeah, probably so. I mean, there's that with a lot of different voice
Previously
actors
on
and stuff.
Star Trek Club,
Or maybe something sort of close, because those kinds of voices are better if you can get somebody to come into a booth and read a lot of like specific things, and then they can change things based on all of that like dialogue around to make other words and make it as smooth as possible. Because this was a thing that, this has nothing to do with anything, but this was a thing that they were trying to do with Roger Ebert's voice when he lost his ability to speak, when he lost his jaw, where he would type into a computer and a generic computer voice would ring things out, and it was a little bit droning, and it was the best that you could do, but it wasn't great. So they were trying to develop a version with his actual voice, using samples from all of his TV shows. But because he couldn't like go in a booth and record a bunch of samples specifically for that program, and reading like specific inflections and things for words that would not have been in those shows, it was kind of clunky, and it was so it was really interesting, and like I've listened to it, it's cool. But it would never get close to perfect unless you intentionally made a thing for it.
Sure.
So I guess the point I'm making is if you did it with Majel Barrett, it would probably sound a lot like Roger Ebert's, because you couldn't get her in a booth to record for
maybe,
it.
except they did put her in a booth to record the computer stuff.
No.
So...
I know that, but what I'm saying is all you'd have is the computer stuff.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be like normal
speech.
speech. It would be like when you hear those voices, on...
Right.
With stuff is strung
There are
together.
certain words you'd need that you wouldn't have. But anyway, so we're going to Season 2. We're going to the 3rd episode. It's Minefield. And this is going to be, canonically, the first but the first look at anything Romulan. So keep in mind, and we'll talk about this as we go along, of course, that in this part of canon, we're not supposed to know what the Romulans look like yet, because we don't see them until 23rd century, when we get into the
Balance of Terror.
Thank you, Balance of Terror in first season. And during the... Just for people who don't know, during the Earth-Romulan War that happens a few years after this, but we never get to see dramatized, the Romulans and the humans go to war, and they don't see each other's faces because they don't have visual ship-to-ship communication, according to TOS. We will contrive other reasons for that in this show, because obviously we do have ship-to-ship communication. So they're going... And Archer has already heard of the Romulan Star Empire because he's been to the 31st century and saw a book in a library that said Romulan Star Empire. And he went, "What's that?" And then Kierman Daniels was like, "You're not supposed to know about that yet." That's the first canonical reference to the Romulans.
What's that?
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. Let's get into Minefield. Get it to timestamp 0. Make sure you're watching the 3rd episode of Season 2. And hopefully you had enough time to pull it up. Here we go. Everybody, please press play right now. It's cool that this just happened to come up today. This was actually an episode I was hoping maybe we would end up watching tonight.
Right. And I think
I've
I
seen this a long
mentioned
time.
this earlier when we were talking about the Romulans, how we did, they weren't really specifically identified when they encountered them, when we were talking about Enterprise episodes that did that earlier.
Yeah, they will be here. We will know that this is a Romulan.
They do mention their by name.
They do.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a Romulan minefield, and we see a bird of prey. I mean, I'm sorry, a warbird.
That's right. I remember
we see a Romulan
that. I
warbird.
couldn't remember if we knew who they were though.
Yeah, and I think it's because the Vulcans are aware of the Romulans. They just don't know what they look like.
Right.
Yeah,
they should.
Yep.
Look at that.
So Reed is all business.
The Enterprise pads have aged
significantly. Yep.
Bad because of they're trying to make them look
well. Keep in mind that what we're
advanced and less advanced. I don't know.
What we're extrapolating from right now is more like PDAs and stuff. We're in 2002.
They look like a Palm Pilot.
They had like a Palm Pilot, yeah. And so what they have thought of here that we didn't in the show set later but made earlier is that you wouldn't need a stack of them. So you do have pads in this show that are just downloading things and everybody's got one. So it's futuristic in that sense, or at least more, true to life than the later shows, or the canonically later shows were.
Right.
So Archer seems particularly out of his element here talking to...
Archer's out of his element in every situation. It doesn't really matter what the situation is.
Sure.
Yeah. No, more of the way this scene is supposed to play is that Reed's out of his element.
Sure.
He seems like just a guy uncomfortable with himself.
Well, but it's supposed to be like he's stereotypically British, right? He's stuffy, he's professional, he doesn't like how lax the ship is, and if memory serves, he's going to get into that in this episode when he's out on the ship and gets his leg impaled. We'll see that happen a little bit later.
Nice.
But this is kind of a Reed character piece. And it's as good of, some character development as you've gotten in the show with anybody. And all we really know about Reed before this is he's, like I said, stuffy, and he's all business, and he's a military kid.
Right.
And his father was in the military, was in the Royal Navy. The Royal Navy.
You know what it sounds like whenever Jolene Blaylock reads lines as to Paul? It sounds like she's on, like, Valium or something.
Yeah, no, I know! Half the time when she talks, she looks like she's on Valium. I completely agree with that.
Yeah, right now, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, because, well, here's the thing. She doesn't know how she looks to everyone else, no matter how much of the show they make. So in her head, she's doing what Nimoy's doing with his face, and she just doesn't know how to emulate that. So what she really looks like is that she just got gassed by something.
I know.
But in her head, she's being stoic. But she doesn't look confidently stoic.
Oh.
That looks pretty good for this show.
Wow.
That looks pretty good for this show.
Just a hole blown into this hole.
That happens with Enterprise a lot. Everybody got your lighters. Get from there to here. No, it's a rule in club now. We all have to sing the stupid song. It's been a long time, but my time is finally near. And I will see my dream. Oh, he's like in a different place than I am. Okay, forget the rule. We're not doing that rule anymore. That's going to irritate everyone.
We also have to sing the Archer's theme from the closing credits. Da 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 da.
A couple people in the comments I think are complaining that we're not being very nice to Jolene Blaylock, but I'm just calling it like I'm seeing it. Like, she seems like a smart girl, just not a great actress. Like, when you heard her in interviews, I always appreciated that she was so straightforward about what didn't work with the show. I'm sure that didn't help her, potential for, future gigs and stuff. But like, she was really unhappy with how things turned out in this, of course. And I just don't think that her talent was in acting.
Yeah.
Edward says T'Pol is fine. I'm sorry, I just don't agree with that. But to her, in her defense, I think one of the biggest problems with this show was casting, and we did not have the best track record with casting with Brannon and Braga going all the way through. Like, obviously, a lot of their casting is good. Some of it's not, and in this show, nearly everybody was just like not really up to snuff.
Right.
And I think Bakula's a good actor. I've said this before, but seems like a bad actor in this context.
I really like Quentin Lee.
I loved him in Chuck. I mean, I've seen him in other things where he's really good. He didn't have a handle on this character. I don't think he had the right direction.
And I think the other shows wasn't noticeable because obviously, and this is the first show that he was heavily involved in the casting. All the other shows was more. I don't think he had as high a role like when Voyager was casting. That was more Jerry Taylor, Michael Piller still doing
Yes.
the casting for that show.
Well, and I don't mean to put all that at their feet. I just mean like during that guard, those guys mostly in charge.
Edward
says
the Berman Braga guard era.
Yeah, Edward says Jillian Blaylock was in SG-1 and was better in that show. I'll have to look at her episodes there. That had 10 seasons, and I've just not seen them all.
That guy had a face gash, and he's being carried in by 2 people.
Well, he might have gashes other places. You don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Brandon.
There's a full-on fire and engineering
like
right now, though.
Move people like that when they're injured. Why don't they have like stretchers and Star
That's
Trek?
a really good point. Yeah. I mean, Brandon.
Where are the stretchers?
Like, how would you want them to convey that visually? The fact that he's being carried probably means he broke his leg or something.
He might have, but like, show us the leg broken, not just a gash on his face.
How would you show that? It's leg with pants on. You want a bone protruding all the way through the pants? Like
violate SAG rules.
Oh,
here.
Brandon.
I want to break his leg and then bring him into sick bay.
That's code for I haven't seen this episode before, so I'm just looking for something to talk about.
Oh, there's plenty to talk about. There's a full-on fire in engineering underneath the warp core, and it's not spewing noxious fumes.
Edward says, "My thoughts and prayers go out to the crew of Enterprise in the X-01." I think Tucker is really good. I think that guy can act.
Yeah.
I've always thought that. I think. Why can't I think of his name right now? Connor Trier. I think Connor Trier can act.
And of course, Billingsley.
Billingsley is amazing, and he's the best actor in the show.
Right.
And has had a lot more work than a lot of these guys, too, as a character actor, subsequently. The guy that plays Mayweather is a cool guy, and I've met him, and I like him a lot. I don't think he's a great actor. I do think that some of these...
I've never seen him in anything else besides this.
I think
him or the lady who plays Hoshi.
Yeah, and she's hit or miss. I do... That's Park.
Grace Park? Is that her name?
No. Linda Park. Thank you. There you go.
Park. Grace Park is Battlestar Galactica.
She is good in certain scenes with the right actors, right? When she's acting up against Billingsley, I think he is kind of helping to elevate her. And I've said this before, but you have that kind of Smallville problem where you've got like a lead actor in that show who's not great by himself, but when he's with really good actors, sometimes he'll really tear it up. This show, unfortunately, didn't have as strong of a cast as that show did. And so the weaker actors don't have stronger actors to lift them up all the time. That's the biggest issue, I think, with the acting in this show.
Yeah.
And then I think Reed gets better as he goes along.
He does, yeah. I love these spacesuits.
They're very reminiscent of 2001.
The 2001.
Yeah, the helmets especially. But, you know, they suffer a similar drawback as most spacesuits seen on screen, where you're illuminating the face inside the spacesuit.
And they wouldn't be able to see out. We know, Brandon.
I understand that, but I mean, it goes with the territory. You got to see the actor.
But I also I don't think that they look any more or less like 2001 spacesuits than the First Contact suits did. I think that they're just basing them on the First Contact suits and trying to go back a couple of generations, like.
Right? I think the helmet is more. I think there's an angle to it that kind of looks like the 2001 suit.
Yeah,
that's fair. Busted Sim, I agree with that about Mayweather and his being a little better in A Mirror Darkly. Everybody, when they get to go more over the top, seems like they're having more of a good time, and it's easier to act that than the kind of somewhat generic stuff that they often get to play, right?
And he has your favorite.
It's infectious.
Scene in all of Enterprise.
I know, it's so good. It's the best scene in that episode. They cut it out when he goes shoot the first person who stops clapping. It's so good. Why would you lose that? I can't wait to watch that episode. I will complain about that for 39 minutes of the 42 minutes of that episode, or possibly both parts.
How is that even possible?
A big note
Yeah, the hole, that huge hole in the ship didn't suck anybody out.
There's nobody there at that time. Like, I don't buy it.
The big note that this show took from people who were dissatisfied with Voyager is there should be a little bit more stress on the ship in terms of like damage and things in both premises, right? So when you're lost in space, things should go wrong more often, and it should be harder to repair stuff. And you get a lot of good drama, and you're rooting for your characters as underdogs more. And this show should have the same thing, because they're out in space, one of the first ships that we send out, and they don't have shields or anything. And they don't have transporters.
Really good
things
job
are
in season
harder.
3
yes, they do.
of showing the damage progressing on the ship.
And making things seem difficult. Like, I don't know if they're going to make it. I mean, I do know they're going to make it.
That was exhausting. By the end of that season, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. They're coming apart at the seams. And trying to hang on to their, their morale and stuff. They got the wrong captain for that, but other than Archer, I always really liked how that was handled. And we're seeing kind of the beginnings of that here.
So do the Vulcans know the Romulans?
The stakes seem high. They know of the Romulans.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. They're not going to know what they look like.
Gotcha.
Because that would just be a direct, straight-up retcon.
What is he making? I'm going to use my electric eel to...
The way he says eel is always interesting to me. Eel. But yeah, this show was pretty good at making the stakes seem kind of high. That is a thing I'll give it. And I also always liked how confined the ship feels. I feel bad for these actors because they got to be claustrophobic. That looks great.
That looks great too. Now, do you think the Bird of Prey, they made it look too much like a TOS ship? Because in Balance of Terror, aren't they like, that ship, we don't recognize that design when they finally see it decloak or whatever.
That's a good point. One of the problems that Enterprise has, and I think Berman and Braga would also call this creative license, and I cry BS on this a little bit, is that every species seems stagnant for at least 100 years. Every major species you know. The Klingons and the Romulans and the Vulcans are all in almost exactly the same place technologically in the 22nd century as they will be in the 23rd, except for certain technologies that we won't get until the 24th that they don't have yet.
Like the holodeck.
Like the holodeck and stuff like that. But everybody, like, we have to catch up to everybody. None of the technology that we invent is stuff that nobody else has invented yet. Like, we have to catch up to everybody. And I always thought that was kind of perplexing. Like, the Klingons... Well, I don't think the Klingons have a cloak yet. Maybe there's that. The Romulans do. Like, the Romulans already have a cloak. Everybody's already got phasers and photon torpedoes and shields. Like, everybody's got transporters already.
Especially because the cloak was supposed to be some mysterious new weapon in Balance of Terror.
And they do treat the cloaking device in this like it's very advanced, but the first one we see is a biological cloak. So it's already way more advanced than anything we've seen before in Star Trek. Another thing that Enterprise loves is technical, jargon. I mean, obviously Star Trek has a lot of technobabble, but what I mean is it likes to do, like, step-by-step repairs and putting things together, and they love those kinds of props. They love these scenes where you like, Enterprise is very influenced on the whole by the scene out on the hull in First Contact.
Yeah,
well, that's a problem.
So basically, and I've talked about this before, but
there you got your leg injury, Brandon.
Yep.
You're happy now.
We know his leg is injured. Now he's gonna go, there should be something wrong with his face, I think.
That's interesting, the suit, like, seals with glue.
But yeah, you have a lot of these scenes that feel like, and the details on the props are great, where you have all these working parts. It's like you got to put this thing into this thing to make this happen. Then you got to come over here into this other thing, and you got a time limit, and can you get it done quickly enough? And it always feels like puzzle solving in a video game.
Yes. Isn't the thing that the Zindi, the sphere builder ship at the end of the Zindi arc in that last episode? They have that seemed like an example of that a little bit, didn't it?
What do those hull plates say?
I love that we've got numbers and letters on those hull plates. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Just the detail there. I guess the part numbers, aren't they? Like each part would have a number. They're all put together.
That's probably an Okuda doing.
I mean, all of that would be, right?
Yeah.
Because we would have to manufacture ships more laboriously in the 22nd century.
Right.
Of course. It would take a lot longer to make a starship, I would think.
I think so, too.
Busted Sim says, no, I just recently watched Balance of Terror. While the crew was a bit mystified about the cloak, the weapon they talked about was an actual weapon that destroyed the observation outposts. Oh. I was never sure when exactly they get the cloak. I'm pretty sure they don't have them in the Earth Romulan War, but maybe they do. I just don't know. That's just the thing I don't know. Or if that's ever given to us canonically. I wouldn't think they'd have it this early, but I guess that's only like 10 years before the Earth Romulan War, though, right?
How can they administer this drug?
A little bit longer than that, but not by much.
Right.
So I feel like if they depolarize the hull plating, it would take care of the magnetic field, right?
What do you mean?
Like I don't even know what polarize the hull plating does.
Yeah. It's just code for we don't have shields, but we have something that sort of works like shields, just weaker. Polarizing has to do with magnetism, which doesn't make any sense at all with regards to...
They're going to make those torpedoes bounce away, but I don't know how that works with energy weapons.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but they're magnetically attached to the hull, is my point. That's why it's stuck on the ship.
Right.
So if they change the polarity of the hull, I feel like they could remove it rather easily.
Yeah, but the question is it polarized right now? Probably not. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so you wouldn't want to polarize it right now because that would probably hurt Reed more because they're like their version of shields. Yeah. So you wouldn't want to polarize. If you could unpolarize it, then that would be good. But you wouldn't right now want to polarize it, I wouldn't think.
I don't know, honestly, because...
Of course you don't, because we don't understand what it means exactly, and neither do they.
But at that point, that's exactly why they could do that,
looks okay.
I feel like. But yes, I'm with you.
I feel like... Do you find yourself, Jay, and Brandon, more forgiving of bad practical effects than you do of bad CGI? I feel like I'm that way for some reason.
Say that again.
Absolutely.
Like, you're more forgiving of bad practical effects than you are of bad
of course.
CGI.
Well,
it's like more... I find practical effects more charming.
Me too.
Even when they're bad.
No, of course. So, a couple things about that. First of all, your CG has to look as good or better than your model work in Star Trek because we're so used to it looking as realistic as it does with model work. So don't go to CG until it can look that good because you're just going to look cheap. You just look like you're doing it for the reason you're doing it. It is less expensive. And B, historical perspective, some things that are almost 20 years old like this is, which is crazy. I can go back and go, that looked pretty good for its day. The crappy Enterprise CG, sometimes it's okay. In this episode, it's looking better than some other things. That really bad CG and Break the Ice in first season looked as bad in 2001 as it looks now. When it aired, I went, oh god, that's terrible. But yes, the model work when it is done well is gonna age better than the CG that we've just come further from. But also, some of the CG in the show just looks really rushed to me.
Right.
It's very inconsistent. Busted Sim, so Archer only went into the future due to an event history recorded happening differently. So in the original timeline, how did they see the mines? Well, there's a lot of that in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Indiana Tracker, didn't the Defiant in DS9 do something with its hull plating? I don't remember.
They had what they call a blade of armor.
Oh, yes, a blade of armor.
They had shields, but then they had like this actual armor that would then break off, basically, bits of it when it would get hit and stuff, I guess.
So, this is a Romulan mine, right?
Yeah.
They have tools to work on Romulan mines. They don't even know anything about the... Their multi-purpose tool just is perfect for this.
Well, I think the bigger issue than they've got a tool that can do that
right.
is how do they know exactly how it works?
Right. I've been wondering that too.
Maybe there's a thing that I'm missing because we're talking over this.
Well, he's done scans. He's like, the internal scans indicate, but you still wouldn't know, like, if your technology is that easy to decipher. The point of everything in it was? Yeah.
Right.
If your technology is that easy to decipher, like, that's
also,
not
Romulans have some pretty crazy stuff, like quantum singularities for their warp drive, so I don't know if I would trust them.
And I'm going to assume they already have that, because every species is already as advanced as we know them almost in the 21st century when we meet them in Enterprise.
Right.
And I don't like the idea that we have to get the idea for all of our technology from other races. Like, the transporter is like the only thing that isn't like that. But again, everybody seems to have that, and we're just catching up to it. I get that with warp drive, where it's the only way to traverse great distances, and so a lot of people independently come up with that. I mean, I guess transporters too, to some degree, but it just seems like everybody ends up with the same technologies.
Right.
Maybe that's unfair, though, because when you get to 23rd and 24th century, it seems like everybody has a lot of the same technologies anyway. I guess my complaint is just that we have to catch up to everybody with so much stuff. I don't know if that's fair, but I always felt like that.
Subspace communication, I feel like, would probably be the only way. It's like warp drive, it's the only way to communicate faster than light. So I think there would probably be some things that would be common throughout. That's the only method of doing something, but I do see what you're saying about not everything needs to be the same.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm right about it. I guess I'm just kind of venting things that I remember thinking when this was on that bothered me. So these are thoughts from like an 18-year younger Captain Logan. Busted Sim in Vox Sola, which
captain.
I think we invented force fields there as well. Oh, okay, all right. I don't remember that. Yeah, see, he starts complaining about the protocols being lax.
Yeah.
This show never gives us, especially early on, any real character dimension for people until they're in mortal danger and think they might die. We do a lot of downtime in the show, but not downtime that gives you any interesting personal information about people.
Right. They never seem to be having any interest except for really random stuff like water
progression. I'm sorry, say that again.
So they don't seem to really have any personal interest except for like.
No, it's Power Rangers. They each have like the one thing they're into, or
the one thing.
Or
that's the thing.
Unidimensional.
Reed's into pancakes.
He likes pineapple upside down cake. Oh man, that's so revealing of his character.
Oh, that was a mistake.
And these are the two characters that Tucker does it too, but it seems like Archer and Reed are most often in these scenes where they have to like dismantle something, or defuse a bomb, or
Oh, it's turning.
Like Reed's the one that has to patch up the shuttle with the mashed potatoes.
Right.
I met the guy who wrote that.
Yeah, you told me that.
The mashed potato episode.
It's a problem when Shuttle Pod 1 is maybe the best episode of your first season. That's a problem. It just is. I think it may be, though. Because those characters kind of come alive a little bit in that episode. You know why? Because they're about to die.
Yes.
Now, Blaylock does get better as time goes on.
We're clear of the minefield.
She gets less
I'm bored
kind of
with
drolly.
this situation.
I don't even know why we're here. We shouldn't be in Romulan space. This is a bad idea.
Listen to me. Dumb humans.
Yeah, see, this is exactly right.
A hyper spanner.
It's a hyper spanner. It's had too much caffeine. Busted Sim, Trip likes fixing things and hates complex math. Busted Sim, reads into pineapple and blowing things up. Hoshi likes languages and her grandma's soup. Mayweather likes working out in microgravity. Yeah, no, that's exactly. He's making my point for me, precisely. Indiana Trekker, I have read that book.
Porthos likes cheese.
That's right, yeah, and he spent a night in sickbay that one time. Have you read The Good That Men Do that essentially retcon Views of the Voyages? Yes, I did, and I have reviewed it, I think, on the channel in an old omnibus. I like some of the decisions they made in that, and I particularly enjoyed all the ways in which they made fun of things that don't work in Enterprise and tried to fix them. The book itself was a little bit of a letdown, I thought. But I didn't love the bookended thing with Nog and Jake in that. But I don't want to just sit here and try to review that. I haven't read it in a long time. But there's a review on the channel.
The fun thing,
Archer likes water polo and getting punched to the face.
I think A Night in Sickbay has the funniest shot in this whole show when Porthos is in that liquid barrel.
Remember that?
In sickbay, just floating there. That's the funniest thing I've ever seen in this show.
If we do worst lists, Enterprise is going to be reverse from some of the other shows, where we had a hard time coming up with what we thought were the 10 best for that show. But we're gonna have so many runners up for worst for Enterprise. We're just be like, yeah. I could have done 20, but we're doing 10. Brandon, is something about the scene kind of irritating you? Kind of grating on you?
What's interesting that his dad.
No, I'm just asking if something about the scene is kind of grating on you. Because you just seem to be sighing while you're watching this. I can't tell if you think the scene is going on too long, or if you just don't like what Reed is saying right now. Brandon's having an experience over here. And I'm trying to figure out what it is.
By the time,
have you ever seen this one?
I've not seen this one. No. So he's got to do all 4 of these guys, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, because it's the scene outside on the deflector in First Contact again.
So is this a bottle show if it takes place on the hull?
No, because they would have had to build a set for this.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I do appreciate all this the deck play, the hull plating.
Green screen.
But see, we're learning things about him.
About the Navy here with his dad. By the time we get to Tom Paris's time, there's like an Earth Navy or Starfleet Naval Detachment or something like that. He talks about that he was going to enlist in, I believe. So I guess there is no more Royal Navy at that time.
Well, but that's because that's consistent. Because we have a one world government at that point, and in Enterprise you get the sense that you still have all the nations are all still separated.
Yeah, it could be that way. Yeah.
You don't have a president of Earth yet. Earth is still set up more or less the way it is now, except we have already gotten past poverty, and there's not as much crime, and we're not going to war with each other anymore. So it just seems like all of the different nations have found a way to get along, but they're not.
And there's some kind of
unified
thing because they still have this Starfleet type of deal. But, I see what you're saying.
That's true, but I think it's still more segmented than it will be later.
Yeah.
Yeah, Busted Sim asked if there's still an English monarchy in the 24th century. I would assume not. Or if there is, it's just strictly traditional.
I'm pretty sure. How come these people wouldn't be dead when everything got nuked? during World War III.
Well, that's true.
I think the Queen would be.
There is no
the
royal
king or whatever
bloodline.
would be
We
dead.
nuked everyone. We had a fraction of the Earth's populace left.
Yeah.
Indiana Trekker, I haven't read the Rise of the Federation series, but I have the first book in that. Chris Bennett, it was a soft reboot about the forming of the Federation. I've read the first few books, good stuff. Was that pre-Enterprise? Or was that... No, that's post-Enterprise, right? That keeps this stuff in mind, I think. I forget. I have started reading the Earth-Romulan War stuff set with this. That's Enterprise. It's consistent with Enterprise. It reads like how Enterprise would have handled that. He's got to go bathroom.
Oh, I thought he was starting to lose consciousness.
Oh, I thought it was a joke. I forgot about that.
And by the way,
Can they just go in his
I called
suit?
that when this was on. I knew that's what he was gonna say. Oh yeah, you'd think that.
TV suit. That's what they do. That's what they do now.
Yeah, that's stupid. Now that you say that.
So
You should be already used to this.
let's just look at the if he actually did go in his suit, the way that it's played, it's like it would just be in his suit. That's bad for a number of reasons because he has an open wound inside his suit.
But I feel like he has some kind of diaper thing on, Brandon.
Sure, but it's not played like that.
She put her belt on wrong.
It doesn't go up there. It's a belt.
Are you Fred Mertz?
Are you trying to look slimmer in a cat suit? I never thought of that. That's hilarious. Yeah, that suit always looks stupid. That's Vulcan's standard issue. Are there any men walking
It's
around
Vulcan
in that?
uniform. It's a uniform, Jay.
No, it's not. It looks almost like faux leopard print or something. What are you doing?
I like her clothes in this season better than the 3 and 4, though.
That's true. Where she's
That
literally
is like
wearing
a
a Power
weird
Ranger
outfit in
costume.
that time.
Yeah. I always wanted to put a helmet on that. Oh, the color correction here is terrible.
Yeah.
That's really bad, actually.
So it looks cool, but
How many times they gotta turn that?
enough.
Turn it 360 degrees. Then turn it
look,
360
it's the
degrees
robot.
again.
That's like a robot
Danger Will
from Star
Robinson.
Well, that screen looks like he's just looking at an old Mac.
I know.
No, it was the round thing that came up from the top.
Believe it or not, all the graphics on the bridge that were in Enterprise were done by like. Do you remember the Mac, the G4 Cube?
Yes.
They had a bunch of those strung together, and that's how they did all the graphics for the bridge
I didn't know that.
for all the
Really?
monitors.
Or if I did, I'd forgotten.
I
That's
remember
crazy.
those cubes when they came out. They looked so interesting.
Yeah.
Really powerful, as I remember.
You can't get in there. There's nothing beyond the subatomic.
They got like little airbags in their helmets.
Plus, it's him.
right.
In the Terra Prime two-parter, T'Pol is walking around the lunar mining outpost in this really heavy utility suit that is somehow still tailored to fit her tapered waist. We get it. You're the sex symbol. Stop it.
Okay, Archer's finally bringing the level that I feel like he
He's
should have
getting
been bringing through this whole
Now,
thing.
he's
I know
getting
he's trying to be
angry like he always
lighthearted,
does.
but
What, where he's actually, like, being a commander or something?
yeah, and
You
like
know?
Reed, he was bringing this this palpable fear, but Archer just
You
Scott
mean he was
Bakula
being like a
wasn't-
pouty face, and then Archer was just like going along with it and like consoling him too much? Is that what you're saying?
pretty much.
Okay. And then now he's doing Yelly Archer, which is what he
Yelly
will do
Archer,
from
every episode,
now on.
Yelly Archer.
After once we get to season 3, Forevermore, that's his one mode. Even when
Yeah.
he's in a good mood,
What the
he's
hell are
snapping
you
at everyone.
doing? Oh, he did
you
say
lost
that.
your pad.
Yeah, he just tossed it into space.
He just tossed it in
I
space.
think that was just to show, some anti-grav at the moment.
Aren't they weeks from home and stuff?
Yeah, that's exactly why that's there.
Like, they're not going to float around in space, but they want something to float in space.
There's this whole separate subplot where on the bridge, T'Pol's like, deploy the grappler, and then the grappler's trying to, like, grab the pad in space.
The grappler.
Oh, these things have an extra air
it's like the
supply
claw
hose.
machine! What, you didn't play with claw machines when you were boys? Oh, claw machines, great fun!
Oh my gosh.
Oh, well, you should probably be glad that he's not like that, because then you're not dead, Malcolm.
Just let him, you stop pouting.
Literally makes no sense for him to have wasted his oxygen like that.
Well, something like scientific logic, Brandon, is not going to get in the way of this show. See, when you're trying to do a show about early space travel, it probably helps to read up on early space travel. But this is the show that doesn't even think to do a basic naval thing like have alarm klaxons that go off when you're getting fired on.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, they have.
So of course you can't go to the bathroom in your
Navy.
spacesuit.
Now.
Yeah, but we have red alert now. They may not call it that, but we have it.
Yeah.
You had to have Reed get obsessed in the middle of a singularity in an episode called Singularity, where he's like, "Oh, we gotta have a Reed alert." At the end of the episode, they're like, "Oh, that's actually a good idea. Yeah, you should have had it before you left."
My laptop's gone. Oh, here it is. I found it.
Well, yeah, Busted Sim, that goes without saying, though. Discovery and Picard make Enterprise look like TNG. So, yeah, I mean, he says, like, as much as you mock Enterprise, it's still better than Discovery and Picard. But I make fun of Enterprise and just complain about what doesn't work about it as still a Star Trek show. It's the worst Star Trek show. The other things you're talking about aren't Star Trek. Like,
So, there's so much damage on this ship. They did a shot
Look at
from the
that.
other side
That's-
of the ship,
oh my
and
God.
you
They
couldn't
need to go
see
back.
the damage.
We have to go back.
these shows tell a lot of, like, kind of, sometimes incoherent, sometimes just really contrived stories, sometimes just really dull, uninspired stories. Discovery and Picard have better things to do than tell stories. That's the difference. Like, one, they're not Star Trek, but two, they're not about storytelling. They pretend like they are. I don't want to spend this whole time complaining about that,
That's
but you
like
brought it up,
contact
so I thought I'd
yeah.
mention it. That actually looks okay.
Yeah.
No? You don't think that looks very
I think it
good?
does.
Oh, okay.
It looks
I just
alright.
thought you said,
I said it looks like it reminds me of First Contact when they released that thing.
all of this is reminding me of First
The
Contact.
deflector dish.
Yeah.
But now they're gonna shoot him. Assimilate this.
Assimilate this. Oh, wait. Don't shoot at us. Oh, no, they do have a cloaking device. They're decloaking, right? You see? Because they're just
Hail them.
24th century Romulans in the 22nd century.
She wants you to throw hail at
So
them.
now they polarize.
See, they can polarize it now. I think if they polarized it before, it would have killed Reed.
That would have been gross.
Yes. Yes, it would have.
It would have been like Galaxy Quest.
Or Alien Covenant. So, I have this weird relationship with the NX-01. It is one of my favorite designs of a ship in the 24th century.
Right, because they ripped it off from, like, what is it, the Akira
It's the
class
Akira
or
class,
something
yeah.
like that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they just reuse it.
And I love it. I finally bought the toy of it that was made by Art Asylum. And it's one of my favorite, Trek things that I own now. But it's just more of that, really kind of lazy,
Reuse.
yeah, creative license. Well, we
Was
want it
Art
to look like our
Asylum
shows
the
always
people who
look.
had
Then go
the-
forward some
the
more
market-
then. Sorry, what?
Was Art Asylum who had the merchandising rights when the show was on?
Yep.
So there is
Playmates
But that was
lost
during
it.
the period when the only time you could find that stuff was like in the weird back section of Suncoast, where it would be like they would have like the toys or whatever for.
Yes.
But they were really there for like collectors.
So they just went to warp with a hole in their
Yeah, and they have a big
decks.
hole in their ship.
I'd also like to point out that because of where they were located when the blast occurred, there's absolutely no physical way possible in physics that they would have been next to each other to be picked up in the same spot.
Busted Sim says, did you ever see the NX-01 refit? I'm not sure what we're talking about.
What's the refit?
Like, there wasn't a refit in the show. Where was that done? I loved the throwback to this that we got in Star Trek Beyond with the Franklin.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
With the way that built on this,
They
it's
actually
cool.
made a Hallmark ornament out of it.
I have it.
Yeah.
I think you bought it too.
I didn't get the Franklin that year. I think I got
you
something
didn't? Okay.
else. I don't know what I got.
Okay, this watch, I thought that episode was a little bit drawn out.
Yeah. Oh, we have to sing the song. Da, da, da.
Da-da! Da-da!
There's a guitar solo.
Oh, it was in a calendar. Indiana Tracker says a secondary hole was added to the NX-01. Oh, that must have looked weird.
A secondary hole.
How
Let's
did
look
you
that
do
up.
that?
Okay, we're looking it up. What does that look like? Hang on.
Was
we'll
this in
find
the
it.
Ship of the Line
Ship
calendar?
of the Line? Yeah.
Always a staple.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Okay, I'm not seeing it right now. Hold on. Ship of the Line. Let's see if we can find this thing. So one reef. I'm having a difficult time. Oh, okay. Is this it?
It looks
Where
like
they just
it.
have a like hole slapped onto the top of the.
That's weird.
It's weird. And then they give it the bottom of the Constitution. No, this is weird.
Then
Yeah,
got
they just
rid of
try
the
to turn it-
catwalk, your favorite part.
Yeah, they got rid of the catwalk, and then they try to turn it into the Constitution.
Looks like the Enterprise E almost.
Yeah, but slapped on top of the bottom of a
That's
Constitution
so
ship.
weird.
Yeah.
That's weird. Okay. Nope, I don't like that at all.
Nope.
That is gross, and I don't want it.
That's gross.
So, yeah. So nobody make one of those because it's gross. Okay. So
the
now,
ships of the line calendars, they always looked even more CG than anything else.
well, of
ever.
course, it's not like they built a model.
I know, but that's what killed me. That's why I never got one because I hated them.
Some of the designs were cool, but I mean, I
thought
never
they
looked real
looked
close at them.
interesting. They have some cool scenes, Brandon.
Yeah, but
I'm not a big ship guy, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and rate the
I never
episodes
got
now. And we watched Cloudminders, and then we watched Minefield. And you know what they have in common? The letters M-I-N. Okay, so let's start with Adam, and then you guys feel free to rate in the comments.
letter
If you've
D.
not joined us before, we rate on a scale of 0 to 4, just like Superhero Rewind. 0 is dreadful, and I never want to go there again. And 4 is that was wonderful, and let's watch it again right now. Anything in the middle with decimal points is okay, and we begin with Adam. How would you like to rate today's TOS and Enterprise episodes? We got no
I think
TNG
I'll
or
give-
Voyager today. That's amazing.
Yeah. I think I'll give the Cloudminders a flat 3. I like it. It's interesting, even if it doesn't make any sense about how they're
Right,
in the
as we
Federation stuff. It's an
eviscerated
interesting
that
episode
whole
about like
concept.
We
class.
did.
Right,
We ran that into the floor. Absolutely.
It's a very TOS episode about class, class issues and
But
stuff.
that usually happens extra Federation, right? Not intra
Yeah,
Federation.
it's not in the Federation. That didn't make sense. But it was and it had the cool city.
Yes, Stratos.
What would so with your intra and extra thing? What would like micro federation and macro federation be?
Micro Federation. That's a. So the macro would be like the Federation at large, right? But micro would be like
Individual
w-
planets
well,
inside of the federation?
I think that would be like. Yeah, honestly, it kind of would be, but
Like
like
their
Micro
own
Federation
government.
might be It might be more centralized though to Earth's part of the like the creator of the Federation, so to speak.
Okay. Like the headquarters.
Yes.
That makes sense. Sure. Okay. Well, that was pointless but fun.
I think I'd give Enterprise or the whatever that. What was that episode?
Minefield. Did you see how they had to traverse a minefield,
right.
but it wasn't really about traversing it so much as getting hit by
I'm
one.
gonna give that
and then
a 2.5. I did not enjoy it as much this time watching it. I felt like it kind of went on.
That's so. We watch a lot of episodes of things in general when we do commentaries like this on things we haven't seen in a while in Star Trek Club and at large on the channel that watch better when you talk over them. This was not that way.
Nope.
No.
Brandon, what are your ratings?
So I have nothing to. I don't have a lot, I should say, to judge this episode of. I'll say this first, to judge the episode of Enterprise that we watched against other things. But I'm actually going to give both of them flat 3s. I was already going to do a flat 3 for the Cloudminders. You know, watching that a second time, some of my same issues from having watched it. That was only my third time seeing the Cloudminders, the first being in Club years ago, and then the second being just the other day. So it was definitely interesting. I liked some of the ideas that it brought up, but like, you know, we tore it the heck apart. And as we should have, I feel like, but it's going to be a 3 because I still dug it for other things, and I really appreciated, because the first time I saw it was pre-remaster. This time, you know, and I didn't remember some of it, but I thought it looked really good, and the superimpositions that they did with the new remastered stuff was fun. This one, like, I see, you know, that most of the episode takes place on the outer hull, but I just felt like it was just dragging on, and they weren't bringing the same level to the acting, each of them, until kind of the end, and that's a lot of why I was sighing.
What do you mean by same level? I just don't know what that means.
Okay, so he's got the thing, you know, through his leg, and it's attached to the hole, and he's all mopey, but he's got this intensity about him, you know, talking about these things, but Archer is being too light-hearted.
This show has a huge communication problem.
Yes.
Where
it's noticeable here.
Yeah, Bakula, I think, thinks he's communicating one thing that is not coming through to you. Mm-hmm. Where, like, he's trying to console him, but, like, there's what it is a lack of nuance. Right?
Certainly,
yes. It's a lack of any underlying anything, right? There should be subtext in what he's doing. So
and there's no
he
subtext
should be communicating
in what he's giving.
Something to the audience. Like, I don't feel like I'm in his head at all, right? So to the audience, he should be communicating, I'm scared for my crewman's life. I care about what happens to him. I'm trying to console him and make the situation seem less dire than it is. And that's what, but you didn't get that that's what he's communicating. Nope. What it seemed to you was like he was just, it'll all work out. It's fine.
Yeah.
And then when you get to the end, finally he just starts yelling a lot. And there's also no subtext in the yelling. It's just, get over yourself, soldier! You're not the same guy you were earlier.
I appreciated that more, even though
they should make an
still
action
was
figure
lacking.
of Archer yelling.
But I think it's the same problem, though. Like, now that you bring that up, I think you're right about it. I think it is a problem, and I think it makes it worse. Like, you were just looking for an energy that he wasn't bringing, but don't give him too much credit, because once he's bringing that energy, it doesn't come from anywhere.
That's true. You're absolutely right. And subtext needs to be there, and it's just not.
No, that's a really good point you're making.
Because he could be, you know, like, this is going to work out and everything, but he could have this kind of, yes, it's going to work out, but like, even I kind of doubt that what I'm telling him, you know, like, it might not, but I just need to be here for him.
Yeah, Archer's just so generic. I mean, he's really flat.
And that's unfortunate, because I like Scott Bakula.
Yep. No, it was the right casting choice, and everything around it is just wrong. I just felt bad for Bakula. Like, I can't lay all of that at his feet. I don't think he knew what to do with any of that. For 98 episodes. Anyway, so I'm gonna give Cloudminders 2.5, I think, for TOS. Although if I sat down and watched it by myself and didn't talk over all the scenes that are important that I was talking over, I might feel differently about it. But I was feeling funky about the whole Federation thing that we were talking about the whole time, and it seemed a little bit draggy too in places. But TOS has that a lot. I think it's probably a mid-range season 3 episode. I don't even think it's one of the better episodes of that season. I think there's 3 or 4 that top it, that are well better than that.
Yeah,
it's no Enterprise
definitely.
incident, certainly. But I think all the guest stars are really good in that.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna give, and the Spock love interest thing is really good in that. And he has a couple of those because he kind of has that with the Romulan lady in Enterprise incident too.
Yes.
Come to think of it, yeah, the sub commander in that, yeah. And then, or is she just a commander? I think she's actually.
That's just a female.
Isn't she
Romulan commander. She has no
Yeah.
name.
That's
yeah,
right.
because she and Mark Leonard's characters are called the same thing because we never get names for
Right.
them, so they're just the Romulan commander, and she's just the
Right.
other Romulan commander.
The female. Right.
Right.
And then I guess I'm gonna give Minefield also a 2.5. I'm gonna give him the same score, but 0.5 lower than Brandon did, I suppose. And I liked that less on this viewing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And part of the thing for me is that it's actually a lead-in to a much, much better episode, and I always think of it as better than it is because I like the episode that it leads into a lot better, which is on my list. So if you really know your Enterprise, you'll know which episode I'm talking about. But I'm not gonna say it until next time. Anyway, Daniel Davis says Bakula's fine. He's successful enough anyway. I don't know. I just always thought it was weird. Like. I apologize, but I disagree. Okay,
Yeah, you sound like one of those NCIS shows right now, I think, or
Yes.
something.
I bet he's a lot better than that, too.
It's CSI. Isn't it CSI?
No, I thought it was NCIS
It's
New
NCIS, I
Orleans
think.
or something
Yeah.
like that.
Is it NCIS?
I think it's the New Orleans one, yeah. Anyway, Indiana Trekker gives Cloud Miners a 2 and Minefield a 2. Busted Sim gives Cloud Miners a 2.5 and Minefield a 3. Tom says 2 and 2. Daniel says Cloud Miners 2 and Minefield a 3.
Oh, we got
Interesting. Yeah, all over the place.
Yeah.
And then Jason gives Cloud Miners a 2.5 and says he didn't like the story because he didn't know what was going on, but I overall like the episode, and apparently there was going to be a Season 5 Enterprise episode going back to it. It's funny, people keep bringing that up, like I didn't mention it earlier. Like, did you know
Yeah.
this? Yeah, I already talked about that. And then whatever the Enterprise episode was called, 3.25, I really like that episode because I like Reed and Archer, and that's what the episode's about. And I like the story because it's basic.
Yeah,
That's
basic.
fair. Yeah, it's basic. You know, the main language in Star Wars. Anyway, everybody, thanks a lot for watching. See, I know a couple things about that, too. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed watching some Star Trek with us, talking about Enterprise, even if you disagree with how we feel about
I
Enterprise.
give this episode of Star Trek Club a 3.
I'm with you. It's kind of it's a flat 3.
Yeah.
It's not mid-range. You know, there's worse episodes of Star Trek Club, but there's better episodes of Star Trek Club. I think Brandon did a fine job. I think Adam did an even better job, and I think Captain Logan was just all over the place. Anyway, well, everybody, thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you again in a couple weeks for Star Trek Club. I'm going to be back tomorrow night with a new episode of the Captain Logan Show, where we're going to be talking about the possibility, because we don't know if this is definitely true or not, of Hasbro dropping the Sentais with Power Rangers and no longer using the Sentai footage, and maybe not even making more Power Rangers. And we're also going to talk about the trailer for Star Trek Lower Decks, which I already talked about a little bit at the beginning of this. So everybody
Couldn't get
that
away
watched
from it.
this show will know already how I feel about that, which you shouldn't be all that surprised by, probably, because it looks exactly like what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you again next time. I was Captain Logan. That's Brandon Grimm.
I was Brandon.
And Adam Meredith. Goodbye.